Welcome back, everybody. The meeting's now resumed. Are there any apologies for today? There being none, Lord Mayor.
Mr Chair, I move that the resolution of rates and charges, including all provisions and appendices as set out on pages 215 to 310, and the annual plan and budgeted financial statements, including the budgeted summary of recommendations, the budgeted statement of income and expenditure, the budgeted statement of business council providers, the budgeted statement of financial position and the budgeted statement of cash flows, the budgeted statement of charges in equity, the budgeted summary of recommendations, the long-term financial forecast, and the budgeted statement of financial ratios is set out on pages 7 to 15, and the revenue policy and the revenue statement as set out on pages 202 to 214 be noted for later debate and adoption.
Seconded.
It's been moved by the Lord Mayor, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the resolution of rates and charges, including all provisions and appendices as set out on pages 215 to 310 and annual plan and budgeted financial statements, including the budgeted summary of recommendations, the budgeted statement of income and expenditure, the budgeted statement businesses and council providers and budgeted statement of financial position, the budgeted statement of cash flows, the budgeted statement of changes in equity, the budgeted summary of recommendations, long-term financial forecast, and the budgeted statement of financial ratios as set out on pages 7 to 15, and the revenue policy and revenue statement as set out on pages 202 to 214 be noted for later debate and adoption. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Council's presentation of various programs and businesses will begin. The council providers will be in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 74 of the Meetings Local Law. I now call on Deputy Mayor, Councillor Adams, to present the Transport for Brisbane program.
Mr Chair, I move that for the service of the Council, the allocations for the operations and the projects for years 2019-20, 2020-21, 21-22 and 22-23, and the rolling projects for the Transport for Brisbane program as set out on pages 16 to 26 and the indicative schedules on pages 152 to 154, so far as they relate to Program 1, be adopted. Second.
It's been moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Davis, that for the services of Council, the allocation for the operations and the projects for the years 2019-20, 2020-21, 2021-22 and 2022-23, and the rolling projects for the Transport for Brisbane program, as set out on pages 16 to 26, and the indicative schedules on pages 152 to 154, so far as they relate to Program 1, be adopted. Is there any debate? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I rise to introduce Program 1 to the Chamber, Transport for Brisbane. If this administration is known for anything over the past decade, it is about building infrastructure, and in particular road infrastructure. Major projects like Clem 7, Legacy Way and Go Between Bridge have been city-shaping projects. We've been ahead of the game with their delivery, and if we didn't build them, Brisbane would be at a standstill. Brisbane is a more livable city because of this investment. But we've seen across the world, and even in Brisbane, after all that investment, that we still need to do more work. It is achievable to ease congestion, but it's near impossible to outbuild it. Generational change that we see here in the City Hall administration means we're also looking at different ways that we build infrastructure in the city. Reducing traffic congestion is not always about building more roads, it is also about getting more cars off the road. And that is what we will be working towards through Program 1 of the next few years of this budget. Team Schrinner will be getting you home quicker and safer by easing traffic congestion and giving you more travel options so you can spend less time on the road and more time doing what's important to you. With a total spend of $443 million, there are several new initiatives the Lord Mayor has brought forward in this budget to make sure that the Brisbane of tomorrow is even better than the Brisbane of today. The key among these new policies, of course, are free off-peak travel for seniors. Boosting patronage in the off-peak not only makes better use of available capacity, but it will create more opportunities for older residents to move around the city and connect with families and friends. It's also about giving something back to the generations who've worked hard and contributed so much to help build our city and our community. The Lord Mayor has pointed out that social isolation and loneliness amongst older residents is constantly a major concern raised by community researchers. Free off-peak travel will do wonders in combating this social issue. Being able to hop on a bus, come into town, catch a show at the Lord Mayor's senior concerts is the type of community we are looking to expand. One where there is more to see and do in a clean and green Brisbane, and you're able to get to your destination quicker and safer. It seems the only person trying to throw a spanner in the works and who doesn't want to see Grandma catch up with her friends is Minister Bailey and the state government. He did come out last week and say that we stuffed up the costings. He said that free off-peak travel would cost $4.5 million, $900,000 more than what our calculations came to. But we told him exactly where we came to that figure. He is yet to show us how he came to his calculations. We used Translink data, the minister's own data from the Brisbane City Council area between July last year and April this year, with May and June estimates based on the data from April for consistencies. We then pulled all the trips which had been taken by seniors within that period, and our figure is $3.6 million. If the policy costs more, it's proof that the state government are extorting seniors on their public transport fares. It's shocking that in 1 year, as it is, Brisbane seniors are slugged nearly $5 million to ride a bus or a ferry in the off-peak. We're looking to support our seniors. The state government just ignores them. And we'll be making sure that this policy is delivered for an October 1 beginning. Despite trying to put a barrier in front of our fare relief, we do know that the state government support our Green Bridges announcement, with an initial funding of $6.1 million that's been allocated in the next year's budget to get into the designing and planning for these 5 new green bridges: Kangaroo Point to CBD, Toowong to West End, St Lucia to West End, Breakfast Creek linking Hamilton to Newstead, and Bellberry to Wacol. By building 5 new green bridges across Brisbane, we're getting more cars off the road and giving our residents more choice when it comes to travel. It will make it easier to get around our city using public transport, on bike or on foot. The business case for the Kangaroo Point Bridge is close to completion, and watch this space for further announcement. Over the next financial years, we will be undergoing consultation with Brisbane residents and using their feedback to make sure these bridges deliver the best outcome for Brisbane. Creating a culture of active travel is one of the great tasks of our travel behaviour officers. However, exceptional work has been done in the Active School Travel program, which encourages school kids and their parents to take their foot off the pedal and put it onto the pavement. In 2018, the program worked to change the travel habits at 46 primary schools, resulting in 1 in 2 families leaving the car at home. Funding for this program continues, and savings have been managed while delivering the same amount of services, and we will be looking at signing up 15 new schools for the 3-year program each year. And to date, we have over 170 schools that have finished this program. To build on these outcomes achieved by Active School Travel, the budget sees the introduction of Safer Paths to School program. $6.5 million over 4 years has been allocated to build those missing footpath links and to refurbish existing ones with our schools that have been involved with our Active School Travel program. It will kick off with $1.6 million allocated over the coming year to deliver around 40 safer pathways to more than 25 local primary and high schools. The funding will mean less cars on the roads in and around our suburban streets, decreasing parking pressure and hopefully more active and healthy kids. While investment is made in missing links and new footpaths for our city, we continue to fund one of Australia's most modern bus fleets. With over 76 million passengers making use of 6 million trips per year, Brisbane residents are voting with their feet when it comes to public transport in Brisbane. Contrary to popular belief, Council has no role in setting the public transport fares, and we do not collect a cent of fares either. But despite this, we continue to subsidise public transport to the tune of more than $134.2 million in this year's budget, an increase of almost $8 million on last year. And that $34.2 million will go towards the purchase of 60 new air-conditioned and accessible buses to maintain a modern, low-emissions fleet. It will, in addition to efforts outlined, we'll get electric bus technology as a move ahead in leaps and bounds in recent time. And the administration is also getting on board, pardon the pun, with the evolving technology. A total of $1.5 million will see an electric bus trial come to Brisbane, with $316,000 for upcoming financial year to get that process started. Our very popular city gliders will continue to travel Brisbane's inner streets with funding continuing, and with over 28 million passengers having taken a ride in our glider services, the demand stays very high. As mentioned at the outset of this speech, Program 1 hinges on the aim to get residents home quicker and safer with more travel options. And chief among this, of course, is the Brisbane Metro. More than $870 million of funding is allocated over the next 4 years for the Metro, a project ranked amongst the nation's highest priority projects by Infrastructure Australia. Before the end of this year, significant contracts for the project will be awarded for the design and building of the Metro vehicles, as well as the package of major inner-city and suburban work. Once built, expanding the Brisbane Metro is one of Council's chief priorities. We would like to see the services extend further north and further east of Brisbane to directly service more Brisbane residents. And if the state won't fund the services on the north of Brisbane, Council will do what we can do. We know that residents are excited about the prospect of getting home quicker and safer, and that is why we are building the Metro. A $944 million investment for Brisbane is crucial for a growing city like ours. The state government tells us we'll have an additional 386,000 new residents by 2041. We need to be able to move these people throughout our city without creating gridlock. By 2023, Brisbane residents will have access to one of the newest and best public transport operations in the country. We will remove up to 200 buses per hour from slower inner-city movements, allowing for more services in the suburbs. The Metro and the local bus services will work in unison by providing the crucial trunk and feeder services that the city needs. Every day, about 170,000 employees, visitors and students travel to or through the city centre, mostly by public transport, and this is predicted to climb by 250,000 by 2031. This is why we need Brisbane Metro. Investment in public transport will always be a priority for this administration, and that is why we're investing in the Metro, but also our river-based transport, which has significantly grown in the past years. Team Schooner is building bigger and better river infrastructure with a bold program of works to encourage public transport use on our beautiful river. Council's ferries, city cats and city hopper services stretch 22 kilometres of the Brisbane River from North Shore, Hamilton to St Lucia. Ferry terminal upgrades, procurement of 6 new city cats and the completion of City Cat 22 are all on the agenda for the upcoming financial year. Council's rolling program of ferry terminal upgrades to ensure DDA compliance is making headway, with construction of Guyot Park now underway and the beginning of the Howard Smith Wharves terminal in the 2020 calendar year. With state-of-art ferry terminals along the river, the city needs state-of-art vessels to match, and Council's 22nd City Cat, which is currently under construction, is a new World City vessel, and we have gone above and beyond with the amenities contained on the Cat. We have catered for 6 wheelchair spaces where the requirement is 4. We've assured that the low-line window allows for those in wheelchairs and children to clearly see out the vessel to take in the beautiful panorama of the river. And for the first time ever in Brisbane, there will be an upper deck. By the end of the year, Council will have a double-decker City Cat travelling the Brisbane River. They are a popular form of transport, and that's why we're exploring new and better ways to carry them. Double-decker City Cats were the answer. With an investment of $30 million for the 6 new City Cats we've promised over the next 4 years, we will be making sure that travelling the river remains a safe, accessible and enjoyable mode of transport. Another enjoyable mode of transport, of course, is getting around the city on bikes, and it's become a more attractive way each day for more commuters to travel. Our promise to invest $100 million over 4 years to construct key city bikeways in the city is coming to a completion, with a couple of major products ready to construct and complete in the upcoming financial year. The budget shows $15 million for the Botanic Gardens Riverwalk, the missing link in our active transport network that provides safe access from the city reach from the Botanic Gardens, which is currently notorious at the moment for its narrow access and pinch points. The initial works have begun on the project with the barge in the water, and we'll see over the coming months, that coming out of the water as it's developed. We see over $1 million allocated to get started on the next stage of North Brisbane Bikeway, a key link within the overall network linking Lutwyche to Kedron Brook, and a funding of nearly $4 million for the Indooroopilly River Walk. After announcing last year that we would construct the river walk in 2 stages in Indooroopilly, we went out and spoke to the community, and what we are doing now is it's coming into 1 stage from that feedback. The overall project will ensure that we'll have connectivity between Whitten Road, Radnor Street near Foxton Street, along the river to Whitten Barracks, and creating access to the Jack Pesh Bridge as well. Included in this is local links constructions for Coulter Street and Sunnybank, Wakeley Bikeway and the bikeway through Wishart Community Park. The total investment, over $25 million for this financial year, will see Council spend its $100 million on the bikeways over the term, the promise we gave at the last election. I have 2 questions on notice, Mr Chair, that I would like to attend to. The first one is one of the programs within this, which is the removal of banana bars. Transport Planning and Operations is progressing a program, as we have announced earlier, this term to remove all banana bars in the city and replace these with bikeway entrance treatments such as bollards where council assets require protection. Priority sites for banana bars are derived from a table that assesses criteria, including key commuter and recreational routes close to the CBD, major centres, universities, geographic proximity around the priority removals as well, councillor requests and customer requests, including our interest groups like the Bugs and Space for Cycling. In July 2018, all councillors would have received communication from the unit selected to ask them to select some that they see as priorities around their ward as well. To maximise the removal efficiency and minimise labour cost packages, it is based on geographic area and will be prioritised over individual removal requests unless there is a specific safety issue identified. We are working on the 2019-20 package now, and we will again write to councillors to allow them the opportunity to identify some priority locations in their ward. In addition, I did have a question on notice around the FTE on the lines through Project 1. I've got a printout here, Councillor Cassie, that I will pass to you after my speech, rather than read that out to the chamber as well. As I mentioned at the outset of this speech, Team Schrinner is about getting residents home quicker and safer.
Mr Chairman.
Point of order, Councillor Johnston.
There was actually another question that was taken on notice as well, and that related to the footpath at Sherwood Road, Sherwood, which is listed in the budget as Sherwood Road, Sherwood, and Councillor Adams undertook to find out, because the information she had was about another suburb. So I'd ask her to address that question as well.
Councillor Adams, if you can provide that answer, that'd be
I did answer that at the end of the committee questions last week. It is in Sherwood Road, Maruka. It is a typo in the schedules.
Thank you.
As I mentioned at the
Point of order,
outset of this
Mr Chairman.
speech,
This is where the confusion is. Sherwood Road doesn't go into Maruka as well. So it's listed in the budget as Sherwood Road, Sherwood, and I need a definitive answer about where this $345,000 footpath project, which says Sherwood Road, Sherwood, actually is.
Thanks, Councillor Johnston. You've made your point. The Deputy Mayor said that the question was answered in information sessions. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's in Maruka Ward. I take that was a slip. It is in Rockley, the suburb Rockley. Councillor Johnston was given the actual addresses of Sherwood Road. It is a typo in the book, full stop. Team Schrinner is about getting residents home quicker and safer with more travel options so they can do more of what they love, not commuting to work. We have nearly $450 million dedicated to this cause, and we are very excited to deliver every project that we have announced. Delivery of these projects, along with long-standing council services, will definitely ensure that the Brisbane of tomorrow is even better than the Brisbane of today.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Further speakers? Councillor Cumming.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, firstly to the Metro. And the Metro will cause traffic chaos in many areas of Brisbane during the construction stage, and I'm convinced this is why no serious construction work will begin until after the 2021 financial year, conveniently after the 2020 council election. And the other thing that's a big concern in this program is the bus patronage in Brisbane has been flat-lined or going backwards for some years. In fact, it sort of coincides with the involvement of the current Lord Mayor. And as soon as he had anything to do with the Brisbane transport, it went backwards. I can recall Councillor Schrinner complaining bitterly about fare increases for buses, having cut patronage. He demanded cuts in fares, but when the cuts came, the patronage didn't improve. No thanks were given to the state government for cutting fares. This LNP administration has done nothing to promote the use of public transport. All they can do is whinge at the state government. People don't like whinges, so they've stayed away from buses and city cats in droves. Labor would promote public transport and encourage people to use it. The only promotion the LNP do is self-promotion and self-aggrandisement, and putting over as Lord Mayor all over the brochures sent out to theoretically promote the Metro, when they're actually all about promoting the Lord Mayor. Labor would promote the benefits of public transport, amongst them a reduction of car traffic, a reduction of congestion, lower levels of air pollution, leading to a cleaner environment. The administration can't even be honest about the number of new buses they will purchase in the 2019-2020 financial year. They keep saying 60 new buses, but then if you read the documents, it actually goes and says 60 rigid equivalent buses. And when you take into account 10 new 18-metre articulated buses, there'll be under 60 buses purchased. And I'd like the administration to be honest and specify exactly how many real buses will be purchased. So why make misleading and deceptive conducts about something as simple as that, Chair? It's because misleading and deceiving is in the LNP blood, Mr Chair. The Lord Mayor's budget speech refers to 4 next generation city cats, but there's already one. We're still waiting for a city cat that's been promised for some years now and still not built, so we'd love to see when these ones will be built. One suspects that it won't be till late in the term, if at all. So we'd ask the administration to give a commitment. When will the other 4 city cats be in service? Will it be one city cat per term up till the 2024 election, or will it'll all be left till the end of the term and it'll be part of a pre-election announcement and a media stunt at that time? Or will it not be built at all by the 2024 election? Active school travel is a matter that's a grave concern for the opposition. Last year $785,000 was allocated. This year it's down to $665,000, a cut of $90,000 or 15.29%. Labor will reinstate funding. That's a very successful program, very well regarded. There's always schools wanting to do it, and to slash the funding to that extent is just totally unacceptable. The Green Bridge is proposed by the Lord Mayor. Look, Labor Party was the party that supported the original Green Bridge, which is actually the Eleanor Chanel Bridge, Councillor Adams. I know in your early media interview you thought it was named the Green Bridge. It's from Dutton Park to University of Queensland. Campbell Newman tried to stop the bridge being built, but that was during the hybrid council, as I call it, time, but we insisted it went ahead, and it's been a great success. It's led to a great time saving for students using public transport to get to UQ from the south. They no longer need to get trains or buses right into the city and then right out to St Lucia, and approximately 30 minutes each way is saved. So thousands of cars have been taken off the roads as well, and it's been a great success. So we support green bridges, which incorporate buses. We're interested to see what the green bridges that the Lord Mayor proposes will incorporate. And we also are extremely concerned about the Balbarry to Wacol Station Bridge in particular, which from what I can gather makes no sense at all. The free off-peak travel for seniors on buses, we support this ideas, but we're concerned that the administration has not costed it properly, if at all. And on the Sunday Mail on the 16th of June, Transport Minister Mark Barley was quoted as saying the cost will be $4.5 million a year, not the $3.1 million a year claimed by Councillor Schrinner. And it wouldn't be surprising if Councillor Schrinner got it wrong, because he couldn't cost anything to save himself. While we support the proposal, we're very interested to see how much this initiative boosts patronage. The Translink Fares, I looked up the Translink Fares from Wynnum to the city, which is a fair distance. For pensioner discount means that it's $2.02 during peak periods and $1.61 during off-peak. So pensioners would say $1.61 each way. So the saving is not great, but every dollar counts when you're a pensioner, so that's fair enough. But sadly, this proposal won't increase patronage during peak hours, which is what the administration has failed at and is doing nothing to address. Peak hour patronage on buses and ferries, as I said, remains stagnant, and the LNP has failed on public transport for over 10 years.
The Speaker's Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Our focus in this budget is about building the infrastructure our city needs and protecting our incredible lifestyle. And Program 1 is an absolutely essential part of that agenda. Program 1 funds important infrastructure and transport projects like Brisbane Metro, like the 5 new green bridges, like our public transport subsidy, which is up around 6 to 8 million on last year alone. We're putting more than ever into public transport and subsidising it. Once again, the only council that does this in Australia, and certainly the only council that does this in Queensland. We're proud to do that because it's about reducing traffic congestion and getting people home sooner and safer, quicker and safer, and providing alternative modes of travel to the private motor vehicle. It is fascinating because this budget funds the biggest ever investment in public and active transport that the city has ever seen. Now, when you include Brisbane Metro, a $1 billion project, or just under $1 billion, 640 plus million of which is funded by council, and then another 300 by the federal government. We have never seen a council investment in public transport of this scale. And then you add on to that the 5 green bridges. This is the biggest transformative shift towards public and active transport the city has ever seen. And it's fascinating to hear Labor's comments about the green bridges. They like most things, they can't decide whether they support them or they don't. They wanted to claim credit for the Eleanor Chanel Bridge, and I remember they completely botched that project and had to be fixed up and delivered by the LNP. No, we didn't vote against it. We delivered it, numbnut. We delivered it. The reality is they want to rewrite history. Either they support it or they don't. But really what happens is they support it unless the LNP is doing it, and then they oppose it. And if the LNP is doing anything, they oppose it. And whether they oppose it overtly or covertly is really just the key question. And so just in the recent days, I've been made aware of a letter from former Labor councillor Helen Abrahams, raising concerns about the green bridges. Now, look, excuse me if I've got this history wrong, but I distinctly remember that she was all for green bridges when Labor was in administration. Exactly right. But now, she's concerned. She is concerned about the potential impacts of these green bridges on West End. Now, ultimately, we have to make sure we go through a detailed process of planning and consultation. We need to make sure we listen to residents' concerns. But isn't it interesting that the NIMBYs are being led by the former Labor councillor, already trying to stir up opposition and concern about what should be a transformative and positive project, not only for West End, but for the whole city. And this is indicative of Labor's approach. They will mumble a few things and say, oh, we support this, and then meanwhile they'll be trying to undermine everything because it wasn't their idea, because they're all about party politics. They're all about putting party politics above people, and that is exactly what I predict will happen here. How about putting aside party politics and supporting something which will be good for the people of Brisbane? How about supporting Brisbane Metro? How about supporting the Green Bridges? How about supporting record investment in public transport, which this budget delivers, rather than playing party politics? Now, Councillor Cumming had some clangers in his speech just now. My favourite was, people don't like whingers. Pot, kettle, black. All Labor councillors ever do is whinge, and in fact, it appears to be the same approach that they're taking with their Lord Mayoral candidate as well. Very negative about everything. But my second favourite quote from Councillor Cumming was, Labor would promote the benefits of public transport. They wouldn't actually build anything or do anything. They would promote the benefits of public transport, like people don't know. How would they do that? I don't suppose they'd send out any material or advertising, or how do you promote the benefits of public transport? Would you send out material? Would you invest in advertising? Surely not, because Labor's against that.
Absolutely.
They hate that.
They hate communication.
They hate that.
Hate communication.
So, you know, straight away, Councillor Cumming, you know, he's admitted that people don't like whingers, and he's correct. So maybe he should reconsider Labor's approach. All Labor's put forward so far is that they would promote the benefits of public transport. I assume by sending out lots of newsletters and doing advertising and other promotional initiatives like that. Not to invest a cent in anything, just to promote public transport. Mr. Chair, people are aware of the benefits of public transport. It's not rocket science. You've got to provide better services. You've got to provide new infrastructure like Brisbane Metro, and you've got to provide cheaper fares. Now, we don't have control over fares. Councillor Cumming seems to think that the paltry reduction in fares provided by his colleagues up in George Street was going to be the solution to all the problems. The reality is we supported that reduction because it's better than nothing, but it didn't go nearly far enough. And we saw Queensland Rail, I think it was last year, admitting that the average reduction in fares for Queensland Rail trips across the network was something like 41 or 44 cents. So Labor's Fairer Fare package delivered a 40-cent reduction in fares, 40 cents. And then we have Councillor Cumming complaining that pensioners won't save enough money. He complained about a $1.61 saving per trip, yet Labor's saving was 40 cents. And like anything, like most things we do, they say they support it on the one hand, and then they run straight up to their mates in George Street to try and undermine and hold up and delay the process. This farce that we saw on the weekend from Minister Bailey, okay, we don't set the fares. We don't collect the fare revenue. It all goes to the state government, and the level of fares are directly their responsibility. Yet when council puts an offer on the table to provide free off-peak travel for seniors, all they can do is criticise and undermine. And all they can do is attempt to gouge the ratepayers of Brisbane by charging more than they should.
That's right.
The government up there in George Street is so broke that they are trying to overcharge and rip off Brisbane seniors and Brisbane ratepayers to fund their financial incompetence. That is what's happening here. Minister Bailey is quickly becoming known as the Minister for More Congestion. Yes. The anti-transport minister.
Anti-transport, absolutely. Because
all he ever does is attack, play political games. He hasn't done a single positive thing for public transport that I've seen. If he wants to help out, if he wants to reduce traffic congestion, he can get out of the way of Brisbane Metro, give us the approvals we need so that we can award tenders and get cracking on construction. Now, Councillor Cumming raised concerns about the construction impacts of Brisbane Metro, and he said Metro will cause traffic chaos during construction. Once again, with supporters like that, who needs enemies? He never said the same thing about Cross River Rail.
No.
So when when the Roma Street Transit Centre is demolished, the busway is closed down, and that won't cause traffic chaos apparently, but you know what? Metro will, according to Councillor Cumming. So once again, if it's a Labor state government project, they are quiet as a mouse, yet if it's a positive Brisbane City Council investment of $1 billion into the public transport network, all they can do is criticise. It is sad. But this is the clear position going forward. We have a team on this side of the chamber, Team Schrinner, that is very much focused on the future and investing in the infrastructure our city needs, making the decisions, often tough decisions, that are required. And yes, major projects do come with construction impacts. That is a fact of life anywhere in the world, and that is, as far as I can see, an unavoidable situation. And while
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Further speakers? Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I rise to contribute to the debate on Program 1, Transport for Brisbane. And at the beginning, I just want to pick up on something that this caretaker mayor said and likes to say a lot when it comes to Brisbane City Council's investment in public transport. He continues to say that the investment that this council makes, that ratepayers of this city make, is a subsidy for public transport. It's not a subsidy, it's an investment. And this spin that this LNP administration goes through to try and sell to the people of Brisbane that somehow that this is some heartfelt subsidy is absolute rubbish. It's an investment. We run a bus fleet. Transport for Brisbane operates as a business unit. It's there in the back of the budget book. It runs a surplus. A $5.5 million surplus this year as a business. Transport for Brisbane will be contributing back to consolidated revenue in this council. So, this rubbish that this mayor goes around saying that this is somehow a subsidy is quite frankly absolute crap. Now, when it comes to...
Councillor Cassidy, look, can you just avoid words that would have the appearance of swear words, please?
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry. The Lord Mayor did say that recently. You didn't pull him up, so...
And he's disappeared.
Absolute bunk, Mr Chair. Now, when it comes to the Lord Mayor's, big vaunted free travel for seniors plan, we can see here just how incompetent he is and just how incompetent the Deputy Mayor is when it comes to numbers. This budget is barely a week old, or was barely a week old, when the black hole emerged in this project. Their massive miscalculation, Mr Chair. Now, the Mayor said he was going to give seniors a free ride in off-peak, but what in fact he did was take the ratepayers of Brisbane for a ride, Mr Chair. So the costing of this policy, conservatively, is out by 25%. Now that's best case scenario, out by 25%. If you take what the then public transport chair said of the exact same policy that Labor took to the 2012 election, he said it would cost $14 million at the time. That's what the former Councillor Simmons said, that when Labor proposed it at being roughly $4.5 million, which is what Translink has said it's costed at, Councillor Simmons at the time said, no, it would be $14 million. So either at the time he was playing politics, Mr Chair, or he was lying. I suspect it was that he was lying at the time. Now, the Deputy Mayor admitted in the information sessions we had that the administration hasn't even talked to Translink about this policy at all. She basically admitted that again here today. The council has done some rough costings on this without actually talking to the authority that run public transport ticketing and fares here in Brisbane. So they've come up with this number, which is drastically undercosted and underfunded in this budget. And it's an admission that the LNP policy that they announced, clearly, Mr Chair, was a way to win a few more votes than actually delivering a good public transport outcome for this city. So again, I say, well, I'm sure someone can pass this on to the Lord Mayor. He's left the chamber, but I say, Lord Mayor, show us the money. Where is this money going to come from? There is a huge black hole in this program already, over $1 million, maybe more. That's a conservative assessment. So which programs will be cut in in program 1 to fund this, or across other areas in the budget, or which suburbs are going to see a rate rise to cover this budget blowout, Mr. Chair. That's what the people of Brisbane want to know. Now, when it comes to the Brisbane Metro, Mr. Chair, it has been an absolute shambles since it was announced, since it was cobbled together back in early 2016 as an election commitment written on a napkin. The LNP's first post-election budget back in 2016, this was the big project. This was, we were told then, as the people of Brisbane were told at the last election, would be an underground subway system to rival the Paris Metro. That's the words that the LNP used. That's the words that former Lord Mayor Graham Quirk used and his loyal deputy, Adrian Schrinner. They said it would be a metro to rival the Paris Metro. They said it would solve all of Brisbane's public transport woes. Well, we have now reached the last budget of this LNP term in office, and they talk a bit about Metro, but they try and talk about other things more, because it's been 4 long years, Mr. Chair, and the LNP administration still hasn't secured the use of the state government busway or acquired the land that is required to build a new bus stop. I think Rod Harding hit the nail on the head when he said this metro is nothing more than a brochure. And I think that's exactly right, Mr. Chair. With the Lord Mayor's photo all over it, Councillor Griffiths. That's right, millions of them. Millions and millions of them. Now, the single biggest expenditure on Metro to date, apart from the advertising, of course, has been its continual redesign, starting from when it morphed from that fantastical underground subway system to rival the Paris Metro to 60 banana buses on the busway, on the existing busway, no new busways, just the existing busway, Mr. Chair. So you might be forgiven for thinking, when you hear all the rhetoric from the administration that work is progressing on the Metro. Every couple of months we see Councillor Schrinner rolling out an update. A few years ago he said it would be driverless. We don't hear much about that anymore. Then he said it would be electric. We don't hear much about that anymore. Then he said it would go all the way to Brackenridge and Carindale without any prospect of that happening on his watch, on time or on budget for that matter. And now he says it's going to go through the northwestern suburbs on his superhighway. He talks a big game. He talks a big game, Mr. Chair, but in reality, for him, that's all it is. It's just a game. Now, Councillor Schrinner also boldly claimed that the project would create thousands and thousands of jobs a few years ago. I remember he got up in here and said, I think it was 7,500 jobs he said this project would create, using some funny calculator that he came up with. But the only jobs we know that this project has created have been in the printing industry, Mr. Chair. Metro has been great. It has been great for the Lord Mayor, for the LNP candidate for Lord Mayor, to flog himself to the people of Brisbane. But it hasn't been great for commuters, Mr. Chair, as they sit in bus congestion while the LNP waste this project money on self-promotion time and time again. They've gone very quiet about the completion date. We know it's been pushed back beyond 2023. They don't have any infrastructure. They don't have the bendy buses yet. And they have a shocking track record of project failure when it comes to Councillor Schrinner's watch. So I'm sure Brisbane residents are doubting they'll ever get to ride on the Phantom Metro. The countless delays and cost blowouts have done nothing but harm to this caretaker mayor's already dwindling credibility, Mr. Chair. People are sick of hearing about it. Just get on and build it. Now, when it comes to another important area of this program, but one that is often forgotten about and rarely talked about by this administration, is the 750 dangerously damaged footpaths in every suburb around Brisbane, some of which languish for 4 long years waiting for repairs, Mr. Chair. Now, Councillor Cummings spoke about a constituent of mine in his budget reply speech, Marie from Brighton. She went for a walk about a year ago on Lascelles Street in Brighton, left her home to go out on one of Council's footpaths. She tripped on a dangerous section of that footpath, sustained very serious injuries. 3 root canals later, a significant amount of time recovering, and 53 spots had to be rectified. Now, they haven't been. That's not included in this budget for footpath reconstruction. They got out some asphalt fillers. They got out the grinding machines and hit 53 spots, Mr. Chair. But we don't see an investment in this budget to start actually fixing these dangerous footpaths around Brisbane. Over the past 3 years, Mr. Chair, 113 out of the 190 suburbs of Brisbane have not had a single dollar spent on footpath repairs. So I'll repeat that, Councillor Griffiths. Out of the 190 suburbs in Brisbane, 113 of them have not had $1 spent on footpath reconstruction in this city, Mr. Chair. So this exemplifies that notion that this Lord Mayor only cares for his inner city pipe dreams. In my ward, there's one footpath reconstruction. I suppose I'm lucky that I get one footpath being reconstructed, which is zero. Councillor Johnson had some. They're gone. 0.8% of the budget.
Your time has expired. Further speakers? Councillor Toomey.
Thank you, Councillor Wines. I rise to speak on Program 1 with the desire to take the debate away from the whinging from those behind me. Mr. Chair, Brisbane was the first LGA in Australia to reach a population of 1 million and is expected to grow almost 500,000 by 2041 on current numbers. With the growth comes a challenge of moving people, freight and services in the most efficient and sustainable way. And this administration is stepping up to the challenge. A record $200 million has been spent on the city's bikeways, and a further $100 million is being invested to deliver further improvements. Today, if you live in the heart of the Gap or Ashgrove, you can ride from the city without crossing a major road, something that was not possible 5 years ago. And I want to thank the Quirk administration and yourself, Councillor Wines, for championing the Kelvin Grove Enoggera Bikeway, which is now a vital link to bike commuters in my ward. Like the Quirk administration, the Schrinner administration has its eye on the ball. It's continuing to invest in citywide active and public transport options for improved pedestrian, cycle and public transport options that deliver economic, social and environmental benefits. In Ashgrove, the Enoggera Reserve Bikeway reconstruction mentioned in Schedule 1.1.3.1 under the heading Providing Active Travel Transport Infrastructure is a vital link for commuters accessing the city, for students to get to schools such as Ashgrove, Marist Ashgrove, Mater Dei and Ashgrove State School. This upgrade will also service those who walk to the shops at Chandler's Corner for their morning coffee and croissant. If rugby or cricket is your game, the new bikeway will provide a fantastic link between the refurbished car park at Enoggera Reserve and the Ashgrove Sports Grounds and ease some of the game day blues for visitors. That is, if you lose. Hilda Road State School in the Gap is one of the very few primary schools in my ward with multiple frontages. They have always, pardon me, they have always been conscious of their presence in the community, especially at drop-off and pick-up times. And I'm pleased to say the school is working with the council to actively reduce their impact. A few years ago, council upgraded the footpath along the Coloma frontage and improved pedestrian movements greatly. This year, Footpath Construction in Schedule 1.1.3.1 will have council finish the job along the Hilda Road frontage, bringing all of the footpaths around the school up to standard. Not only will this benefit the students accessing the school, but also those who visit Watonga Park for cricket, AFL and the BMX jumps, the dog park and also the playground that's there. It's not just the southern side of the Taylors Range that is benefiting from this schedule. In West Ferny Grove, Lanita Road, one of the most important links in Ferny Grove to the train station, pardon me, will have work on this footpath. It'll make improvements to improve movement to the train station. For those who ride along Anita Road, thank you. For those who ride along Anita Road to access the Sanford Cycle Link, the upgraded footpath will provide the opportunity to reduce cyclist and pedestrian conflicts. In addition, these budget line items have a raft of streets in my ward that will have footpaths courtesy of the new footpaths courtesy of the new Suburban Enhancement Fund. Those streets are Delpura, Moulton, Coorong, Persimmon, Stevenson, Warringah Street will receive new footpaths, as well Yoku Road and Sarah Crescent. One of the most exciting new initiatives of this administration is the Safer Paths to School project. Active travel provides kids the opportunity to socialise and bond away from devices and the isolated capsule of the family car. Mr Chair, I come from a long line of active travellers. Well, it wasn't really active travel when I was at school, but that's what we call it today. My father used to call it a kick in the backside if you actually don't get to school. But to continue, my grandmother used to recall hitching a goat up to the billy cart and trotting off to school. That was how she got to school. My mother walked and rode 28 kilometres to get to school on the train. And I would ride myself 6 kilometres across town to get to school with my mates, each of us taking turn at the head of the peloton. My own children have chosen to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, and have always walked to school daily since Year 4. The new Safer Paths project will provide kids all across Brisbane the opportunity to have their own adventures on their way to school, build friendships, gain confidence and independence. Payne Road State School is one of the schools in my ward that needs some improvement to narrow and missing sections, and I'm pleased to hear the Schrinder administration is making it just that little bit easier for kids to get to school, be it walking, scooting or riding their bike. One of the most valued bus services in my ward is the 61 service, the Maroon glider. And again, it will receive funding this year in Schedule 1.2.2.2, support bus services and maintenance. For those in the chamber, this service connects Ashgrove to Coorparoo. It passes through Councillor Maddox's ward, it passes through Councillor Howard's ward, it passes through Councillor Shree's ward, and it terminates at Councillor Cunningham's ward. It's essential for those going to watch a game at the Gabba or Lane Park. If you want to watch a movie or go shopping in Stones Corner, Paddington or the city, it's your bus. Even if you want to watch a show at the Cultural Centre or visit the museums at Southbank, you can catch a ride on a modern, low, fully air-conditioned bus. If you're in the city for a night out on the town, it's your ride home. During the 24 hours weekend service. This service is funded by Council, and I wish to thank the Lord Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, for their continued support for this service. Can I also thank the officers for their assistance with preparing this program. I look forward to delivering the benefits of this program to my ward, and I commend the program to the chamber.
Further speakers? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, I rise to speak on Program 1, Transport for Brisbane. And I'm going to start with some local issues. Firstly, Footpath Reconstruction. I mean, there was an interesting comment from the Lord Mayor about the ALP state government being so broke they couldn't get things done. This LNP council administration is so incompetent that they announced budget commitments on a Wednesday, and by Friday they are gone. Poof. Just gone, completely out of the budget. So let me start with the Footpath Reconstruction budget very briefly. In the budget, there is $488,000 allocated to footpaths along Ipswich Road, Annerley. Now, it's not a surprise to me what the LNP are actually doing here. I kind of figured that there'd be some political game playing going on. But this is the Annerley Junction shopping centre area, which is a hugely busy pedestrian area. Ipswich Road is the boundary between Tennyson Ward and Coorparoo Ward. And as it turns out, only the footpath in Coorparoo Ward side of Ipswich Road Annerley is being fixed. Now, I just thought I'd share with the Lord Mayor. He's a new Lord Mayor. He's told me, which is really interesting, that he wanted to be fairer in the budget. I mean, one of the ways, personally to my face, told me that, and one of the ways he probably could have done that is gone, well, Councillor Johnston's been asking for a skip or a village precinct project in Annerley for 11 years. Maybe we could fix the footpaths in Annerley Junction Shopping Centre on both sides of the road, but no. So I told people what they were doing, and here's some comments back. Just to be sure, Lord Mayor, this is how you are perceived in Annerley. OMFG, sorry, Councillor Nicole. Funnily enough, some of us walk on both sides of the footpath and vote. I hope we see our Coorparoo councillor here responding and clarifying. Yeah, like that'll happen. Disgusting, but not surprising. This election can't come soon enough. Keep it up. Keep the faith, Nicole. Disappointing, but we must keep pushing for what is right. Here's Brian, who he had a more sort of upbeat sort of response, which is the purse strings only stretch so far. Unfortunately, many people will be upset, but the new path is going down. A brighter future ahead. Yeah, on one side of the road. So petty. Someone says I'm their hero. Nice. That's ridiculous. Time for a new city council, and that is disgusting. They are on the way out. Now, that is what the good people of Annerley think about this LNP administration. But it gets worse. Like, that kind of political game playing, pretty normal. Sherwood. Now, Sherwood Road, Sherwood. There is $345,000 allocated in the budget for Sherwood Road, Sherwood. The footpath in Sherwood Shopping Precinct is marked up for repairs, clearly. They're all the little white lines and the blue lines. It's all been measured and marked up. And I'm thinking, oh, this is good news. Sherwood's got really tired. The skips 20 plus years ago. Maybe out of the blue, they're going to do something positive because, again, the Lord Mayor said he wanted to be fairer and wanted to work with me. So anyway, I get into the budget meeting and I ask questions just to confirm it's at the shopping centre. There are places where we'd like new footpaths, but this was Footpath Reconstruction. Then the dissembling from the Deputy Mayor, who clearly doesn't know where Rockley, Maroon or Sherwood is, and she starts telling me that the footpath being fixed was between 280-something and 345. Now, I know where Sherwood starts. It's about 430 Sherwood Road, Sherwood. So I'm thinking that's definitely not in Sherwood. So what's going on here? She had no idea last week what was going on and promised she'd confirm for me. So today we've heard her in her own words. It's Sherwood Road, Maroon, no such place. Then it's Sherwood Road, Rockley.
The Deputy Mayor answered your question and corrected herself.
And I'm debating the issue, so thanks for your contribution. Sherwood Road, Rockley.
You can't behave that way. I know that you've been trying to be warned this whole session. Please, if you conduct yourself in that manner, you'll be successful in being warned.
Well, if I'm breaching a rule of procedure, please tell me. But if you don't like my debate, you cannot disagree with me.
Well, you can't make comment about that.
Of course I can make comment about what's in the budget.
Point of order.
No, point of order, Councillor Shree.
I'm just keen to understand what rule Councillor Johnston is breaking, and I'd like you to clarify what rule you're raising concerns about.
It had nothing to do with what Councillor Adams said or what she said about Councillor Adams. It was the tone with which she conducted herself towards the chairman. Okay, all right.
So there's no rule, so I'll continue.
No,
Councillor Adams has no idea.
Please take a moment to compose yourself and consider your presentation to this place. Councillor Johnston.
So you're a nasty bully as well, and that's all on the public record. All of it.
That's just-
I am
that's just
debating
name
what
calling.
is
No,
in the
that's it.
budget.
Stop now, Councillor
I am
Johnson.
debating
Please
what
sit
is in the
down.
budget, and
Please sit
unless
down.
I'm breaching a rule of procedure, let me know.
You can't call people names.
I didn't
You
call
can't.
anybody
You
a name.
called me a nasty bully. You called me a nasty bully, and now you're calling me incompetent. You can't just bandy around names to people, Councillor Johnson. It's not acceptable. No one calls you names, but you call other people names, and you should really consider whether that's appropriate conduct in this place to just call people a nasty bully when they ask you to be calmer and more proportionate in your comments. Councillor Johnston, please return to the substantive point. Please refrain from attacking individuals in this place.
I am debating the fact that this administration announced on Wednesday that it was funding a major footpath upgrade in Sherwood Road, Sherwood, for $345,000, and by Friday, the Deputy Mayor who's in charge of this portfolio had cut it. Cut it. Now, let's be clear, she had no idea which suburb...
Point of order, Mr
Point of
Chair.
order to you, Councillor Adams.
Claim to be misrepresented.
Yep, noted, absolutely.
It's in the budget book and they're going to vote for it, so we'll come back to that. So let's be clear. This incompetent administration is already cutting projects out of Tennyson Ward. Let's be clear. AST. Councillor Adams stood up and praised the exceptional work of the AST officers, but she's cutting almost $100,000 out of their budget. That's 12% of their budget. They are real and harsh cuts that will have a dramatic impact on the delivery of this program in our city. Now, who on one hand stands up and says this is an exceptional program, we want to continue, and then cuts it? An incompetent administration. Let's be clear where the other cuts are. The Indooroopilly Riverwalk. What a joke this is turning out to be. There's stairs in Riverwalk, so my residents, I'm trying to get the stairs taken out of the bikeway project because stairs, bikes, prams, bit of a problem, and we really want a connection to the south side that's going to work, not just for the north side. Last year, stage 1 was budgeted for $8.5 million. This year, it's been cut, stage 1 and 2 together now, it's been cut to $3,745,000. That's a $5 million cut to a signature bikeway project. Now, if I was the councillor for Walter Taylor, I'd be a little bit worried about why this administration is slashing and burning on a project that it has spent years announcing. Let's be clear about the Metro, where the problems are with the Metro. The Metro will not provide a direct bus service from the south side to the University of Queensland. They're planning to cut 125 buses in their own documentation when they deliver the Metro. We don't know how many dozens more or 100 more will be truncated at South Brisbane at the new QPAC stop. They haven't disclosed any of that information, and we heard Councillor Cassidy outline all the structural problems with the project that just is going nowhere at the moment. But my concern is for the bus users who continue to be bombarded with advertising material from this administration without any reality around how their bus service is going to be impacted. I don't know how you can spend $1 billion on a project that will cut direct services from the south side to the University of Queensland. It's the most stupid thing I've ever seen when it comes to transport planning. It just does not make sense to redirect them further into town, change buses and come back out. Now, there's also some problems with the bikeway project. Just to be clear, $100 million this year, not a single bikeway project in Tennyson Ward, despite the fact that the busiest bikeway in Brisbane runs through my ward, the River Loop. Half of it's in my ward and the other half's in Councillor Shree and Walter Taylor and part of Paddington and Central. So it's just ridiculous that this administration continues to refuse to fund bikeway projects in Tennyson Ward. There was no money in the previous 4 years. There was $120 million and there were no bikeway projects delivered then. $220 million for bikeways, and the best The best I'm going to see is a project in a neighbouring ward is going to have staircases in it for my residents. Now that's appalling. Now there are a lot of other problems with what is in this administration's budget, but I'm going to move an amendment because I believe it should be fixed. The Footpath Reconstruction program is just been botched by Councillor Adams. It really should go back to Field Services, I think, because clearly she doesn't know where things are and isn't aware of what the priorities are in our ward. I mean, this Sherwood debacle is going to be very embarrassing, and don't you worry, I'll be telling people about it because it's in black and white in the budget. And once you vote for it in this budget, you must deliver it. So I look forward to you voting yes for your own budget. But I have an amendment that I would like to move, and I move the following amendment to Program 1, Transport for Brisbane, that within item 1.1.3.1 Footpath Reconstruction, Council transfers $102,000 from large failure repairs, various $816,000 to fund reconstruction of the Lagonda Street footpath between Dudley and Clive Streets annually.
Councillor Johnston, your time's expired.
Seconded.
I have a amendment motion moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by, was it Councillor Griffiths? And trust that's been distributed in writing. Councillor Johnston, to your amendment, please.
Thank you. Yes, I rise to speak on the amendment I've put forward. Now, in the budget this year, Council has allocated $102,000 to fix footpath at Equity Street.
Point of order, Mr Chairman.
Point of order, Councillor
Just
Owen.
in regards to the competency of the motion, could you please confirm within which project program number the funding is due to go to, because this says within the item, and is it staying within large failure repairs? Because my understanding is that it needs to say where the funding is coming from and which specific program it's going to.
That's correct, Councillor Owen. The motion in these instances has to identify the source of the funding as well. So allow me a moment to consider it. Because it identifies 1.1.3.1, I'll infer that it means 1.1.3.1 in both instances, and I'll allow it to continue.
It does, within item 1.1.3.1.
Councillor Johnston, you've had a ruling in your favour.
I know.
Please
know.
respect that.
But you're trying to say I'm doing something wrong. You're
I did not.
inferring it
Did I
states
say
in black
that?
and white.
Did I say you'd done anything
black
wrong?
and white.
I said that the ruling had been made in your favour.
Yeah, good.
And so please carry on as though that is what has happened.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear that this motion is written properly. I'm moving money from one project within 1.1.3.1 to a specific project, which is Lagonda Street between Dudley and Clive Street annually. Now, let's be clear. In 2013, I asked Council, that's nearly 6 years ago, I asked Council to fix the footpath in Annerley near Fairfield Station that runs between Clive Street and Fanny Street. Now that's 6 years ago. It is decrepit bitumen that has been fixed, potholed, patched, potholed on potholes for 6 years. I have had it in my budget submission for pretty much all that time to be fixed. This council has failed to do so. So about 2 years ago, I started a campaign to get our footpaths fixed. Questions on notice, motions, and this administration still cannot competently fix footpaths in Brisbane. As we know, there are 750 around Brisbane, and there's about 80 in my ward that are waiting to be fixed. This one has been waiting to be fixed for 6 years. 6 years. It leads to Fairfield Gardens Shopping Centre. It leads to Fairfield Rail Station. It services students walking up to Ipswich Road to go to our local schools. But it's Braille House, a lot of community services. Has this administration done anything to fix this footpath properly? Well, no. This year, they've announced they're going to do half of it. 1 block. So we're talking about 2 blocks. We're probably talking about 100 metres of footpath here, right? And this year, Council have announced that they are doing 1 block. Now, that's happening right now. So, Council, I don't know how this is all working either, but they've taken the money from next year's budget and they're delivering it now. But when I asked, oh, this is really good, when are you starting on the other section? No, you'll have to check the budget, Councillor Johnston. So I checked the budget when it comes out last Wednesday, and oh my goodness, only half the job's being done. Now, I don't think that's good enough. If you're waiting 6 years to have a footpath leading to a train station, shops, schools, parks fixed, there is something wrong with how this administration is doing its job. So what I am asking in this motion is, of the $816,000 that is available within this budget item, $102,000 of it is allocated to fix the remaining section of this footpath, separated by Dudley Street. Like, you'll go from the nice concrete straight back onto the dodgy bitumen. It just doesn't make sense. So we're asking that $102,000 is allocated from the large failure repairs to be allocated to fix the remaining section between Dudley and Clive Streets. Annalee. Now, this $816,000 is unallocated. That means it is available for jobs exactly like this, where priority footpath failures have been identified. Well, they have here. It's only a few weeks ago, in answer to a question on notice, Council noted it was a priority for large failure repair, yet this administration is not doing it. So here is the motion before us today. It simply calls on unallocated budget funding to be allocated to a footpath in Annalee that is in desperate need of repair. It is in horrific shape, and anybody who looks at it would think, oh my, how could this have been let go for so long? It is not acceptable. It is not acceptable that this administration continues to ignore footpath repairs for 6 years in my ward, 80 footpaths still waiting to be fixed, and this is one that we can get onto and do straight away. It should never have only been half done. It's a bit like the Annalee footpath in Ipswich Road. They're only doing half of that too. I mean, I don't understand what the thinking is around only half doing jobs. It's not sensible, it's not practical. You're leaving people at risk walking on a dangerous footpath, and you know, I just hope someone doesn't get hurt, because it also, the fall of it is quite tricky in addition to the state of it. So it's just not good enough. This is unallocated funding. It should be reallocated to fix up the remainder of this footpath that has been waiting since 2013 on Lagonda Street between Dudley Street and Clive Street. Annalee. Thank you.
Further speakers? To the amendment. There being none, I'll put the proposal. All those in favour say aye. All those in favour say aye.
Hello.
To the contrary, no.
Hello. Of course
No.
I do. Yes, I do.
No, you don't. What will you be replying to?
Silence.
No, you don't get to reply to silence.
I do get a right of reply.
No, you don't.
I do.
My ruling is that if there is nothing to reply to, there is no right of reply.
Point of order.
And that is, Point of order to you, Councillor Shree.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, because my understanding was that generally speaking, if you move an amendment to motion, you speak to the amendment and then you also sum up, regardless of who else speaks. I just want to clarify, is that not the rule?
I appreciate that's your understanding, but if there is no debate, there is no right of reply because there's nothing to reply to. Does that make sense? No. All right. So all those in favour of the amendment say aye.
Well, listen, I move dissent in your ruling. It is contrary to the meeting's local law.
The
Seconded.
dissent has been moved by Councillor Johnston,
Seconded.
seconded by Councillor Shree. All those in favour of dissent say aye. Aye. And the contrary no? No. The noes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Johnston and Councillor Shree. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Attendants, please close the bars. Clerks, please read the result.
Mr Chair, the noes have it, the voting being 7 in favour and 17 against.
The noes have it. Councillors, return to your chairs. Further speakers to the program? Excuse me. All those in favour of the amendment say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Johnston. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Attendants, please close the bars. Please read the result.
Mr Chair, the noes have it, the voting being 2 in favour, 15 against and 5 abstentions.
The noes have it. Please return to your chairs. Further speakers to the program. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I rise.
Sorry, excuse me, Councillor Davis. Councillor Adams, you have a misrepresentation.
Did have a misrepresentation, even though she was drawn attention to it over and over again. I did not say I had cut the Sherwood Road footpath reconstruction. It is being done in the suburb of Rocklea, a mistypo in the book. I answered that on Friday and I answered it again an hour ago.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I rise in support of Program 1, Transport for Brisbane, which is an important program focused on delivering a modern public and active transport system for Brisbane residents. And the Schrinner administration is backing this program with record investment in public and active transport options so that residents can go about their daily business and get home sooner. And this is particularly important for McDowell Ward residents because without a train station within the ward boundaries, the bus service is a vital public transport option. So to have in this year's budget funding for additional new air-conditioned and accessible buses means that we're delivering one of the largest and most contemporary bus fleets in Australia for residents right across Brisbane. What underpins this, of course, and what I think is particularly important, is having a transport plan. And our transport plan acknowledges that public transport is absolutely fundamental to keeping Brisbane moving. And sitting underneath that, also important, is an implementation plan that reflects this through a range of public transport initiatives to deal with growth and to connect people and communities. Mr Chairman, contrary to the whining coming from the opposite side of this chamber, this is a great budget, and the Transport for Brisbane program is full of great new initiatives. I know that seniors in McDowell Ward are very excited about free off-peak travel for seniors announcement. We've got a very vibrant seniors community in McDowell, and I know that this initiative will provide them with even greater scope to get out and about and enjoy every part of Brisbane. And I know some of the seniors groups like National Seniors and our Probus clubs are always planning trips for their members, and so this initiative will give these groups more affordable options for day trips across the city for their members. And I've spoken to many of our seniors who will be eligible for this travel, and I can say very categorically that they are very much looking forward to October 1. However, a number of seniors have contacted me and asked me why free off-peak travel is not offered on train services, and it's a very good point. The question really is, will the state government match this initiative on trains? You know, for a bloke who really likes the sound of his own voice, the Minister for Transport's been very silent on this issue, except to have a crack, which is all he ever does. The Minister for Congestion. And as Councillor Adams said, he's not real keen, or rather the Lord Mayor said, he's not real keen to tell us where he gets his figures from. So I guess the Brisbane seniors, particularly those in McDowell, will just have to wait and see, but I don't think they should be holding their breath. Mr Chair, encouraging more people to use public transport is a positive thing, and providing an affordable public transport option for residents that have limited access to Translink services is very important. So I'm delighted that this budget also supports the continuation of the PPT program. In 2018-19, transport assistance was provided to more than 26,500 passengers, which is fantastic. Through this service, and including the very well patroned PPT service, which operates in Aspley from Monday to Friday. Another great announcement in the budget is the Safer Paths to School program. It's a $1.6 million allocation to deliver or upgrade pathways and connect missing links of pathways around our schools, and I'm delighted that in McDowell Ward we have several schools earmarked for this program moving forward, and that's Aspley State School, Everton Park State School, McDowell State School, Northside Christian College, Prince of Peace Lutheran College and Queen of Apostles School. And this program really is going to make a real difference to the journey to school for students at our local schools. Providing the infrastructure and encouraging students to get to school by walking or riding their bikes or scooting along on their scooters not only has great health benefits but can also assist with reducing the number of cars around school zones during those peak drop-off and pick-up times. And we have a number of schools where there are real problems that are attempting to be addressed around our school zones. A number of our local schools promote active school travel, and so the Safer Paths to School program hopefully will encourage even more students to participate and other local schools to get on board with the active school travel program. But it's not only the kids that will have safer, smoother journeys to school. You know, every day I see mums and dads walking even younger children, pushing prams on their way to school. So by upgrading or constructing those missing links really will encourage more families, I hope, to ditch their car and make an active transport trip to school with their children. And while I'm on the subject of active transport infrastructure, I'd like to speak about the great announcement to build 5 new green bridges. We love that we are a river city, and the Lord Mayor's 10-year vision to build 5 green bridges along the Brisbane River will deliver great benefits to the community. The 3 that I think are extraordinarily important, though, is firstly providing improved access and connectivity of communities on both sides of the river. Secondly, encouraging walking, cycling and public transport trips rather than people commuting in cars. And that directly links to the 3rd benefit, which is that by being more active, it will improve the health and lifestyle of residents. Mr Chair, as I said earlier, this is a great budget. And Team Schrinner's Transport for Brisbane program is full of great new initiatives and builds on the great work already being undertaken. Whether it's undertaking early works for the Brisbane Metro or continuing the $100 million program for bikeway infrastructure or sustaining growth in the Cycling Brisbane program, this is a dynamic suite of initiatives that will go to making the Brisbane of tomorrow even better than the Brisbane of today. I commend the program to the chamber.
Speakers, Councillor Strunk.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, after reading through the Transport for Brisbane, Program 1, I think it should be renamed actually Transport for some parts of Brisbane. Yes. Mr Chair, Forest Lake Ward doesn't seem to be part of Program 1's Transport for Brisbane in this budget. We might as well be in another city, as there seems to be very little for my residents in way of benefits. The Metro is a great example where very few of my residents will actually benefit from this $1 billion project. There is no new funding for Forest Lake, apart from the free pensioner off-peak travel on buses announced. Mr Chair, this is indicative of the waste that seems to be a calling card of this current administration with the vast resources of the Lord Mayor and the Chair's office that they couldn't even get this good initiative costed correctly. And now we see this program has blown out by $1.4 million in just a few days. Was this policy on the run to make this Lord Mayor look good and to enforce his brand on taxpayers? I wonder. Mr Chair, residents in my ward want to see benefits from this billion-dollar metro. After all, the money is coming out of their pockets. So who is Metro benefiting? Well, the residents of Forest Lake Ward aren't, and I won't add one more, but it won't add one more service, increase frequency, or seating capacity. It will expand the services to residents living north and south, but once again, if you live in the west and east, your service, for the most part, won't be improving. So, Mr Chair, let's look at one of the Lord Mayor's 2020 campaign promises, the $500 million Green Bridge project. 5 bridges that will connect pedestrians and cyclists, but won't advance our public transport bus service at all. So we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, however laudable, that won't improve our daily commute to work, at least in my ward. Can I also say, Mr Chair, that this caretaker Lord Mayor has not received a mandate from residents of Brisbane to announce and start funding this project to the tune of $6 million in this financial year. Come to think of it, Councillor Schrinner hasn't received any mandate for any of the announcements and commitments that he has made since being appointed by the LNP as Lord Mayor. Mr Chair, it would be perfectly acceptable if our caretaker Lord Mayor could have followed through on the programs and the projects that were promised by the former Lord Mayor Quirk, but to go into full campaign mode with hundreds of millions of dollars being promised for green bridges is unacceptable. Now, I would like to move to city cats. The one promised this year but hasn't materialized and the 4 new ones on order. I think, is it 6? I'll take that interjection, thank you. I think this project, initiated by Labor, the City Cats themselves, and continued by the LNP, is a credit to all. But I look at them traveling up and down the river and think to myself, there's many other river cities that would love to have them. However, Mr. Chair, not all Brisbane residents and visitors will be able to have the same experience as the rest of us with the new City Cats. New 2-decker City Cat won't allow patrons with mobility issues access to the top deck. And this is appalling, and we should be apologizing to those who won't be able to take in Brisbane from this terrific advantage point and be included with family and friends with this shared experience. It was interesting to listen to Councillor Adams try to explain to an ABC radio presenter why this blunder took place. So there is no lift has been ordered or included in the design for the City Cats. So those with mobility issues, of course, will be stuck on the first level and won't be able to rise to the second level. I thought it was disingenuous also that Councillor Adams said that the new City Cats are all DDA compliant. And I say disingenuous because it may be the case that the design was DDA compliant for what the design showed, or what the design was, right? But I can't believe that a vessel like this would be DDA compliant without having a lift to an upper level. So I just think it's really sad that a lot of people in Brisbane who want to be able to take advantage of these very expensive vessels on a great trip up and down the river, which I recently took on one of our existing City Cats, because it's an absolute wonder.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order to you, Councillor Adams.
Will Councillor Strunk take a question?
Councillor Strunk, will you take a question?
Yes, I'll take a question.
He will take a question.
Continuing on from the line of thought here that there is something wrong with the double-decker City Cats, is Councillor Strunk announcing that ALP will scrap the double-decker City Cats for Brisbane?
Councillor Strunk.
Thank you, Councillor Adams, for your question. Listen, as you said on the radio show, the contracts have been signed and they're going forward. Now, I don't think there would be. I think it would be irresponsible, right, of the Labor administration to cancel contracts in this manner. But I do think that maybe you should go back and revisit the contracts and the design and to see what can be done to alleviate the problem of people with mobility being able to take advantage of the top deck of the new City Cats. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further speakers, Councillor Hammond.
Mr. Chair, I now move that we break for morning tea for the period of 15 minutes, commencing when all the chamber is clear. Thank you.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Hammond, seconded by Councillor Murphy, that this meeting of Council adjourn for a period of 15 minutes, commencing when all councillors have left the chamber and the doors have been locked. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Further speakers? Councillor Huang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to enter the debate on Programme 1 of the 2019-20 budget, Transport for Brisbane. Mr. Chair, may I start by congratulating the Lord Mayor on delivering a budget that is preparing our city for the future. Yes, future, Mr. Chair, the key word is the future. When I was sitting here last Wednesday morning, listening to Lord Mayor's budget speech, only one word popped up in my mind, and that is future. That makes a stark contrast when I had to sit in here last Friday morning, listening to opposition leaders' reply. Another word popped up. Guess what? The word was backward. Mr. Chair, Brisbane is a fast-growing city. We have transformed from a big country town to Australia's new world city. And as a responsible government, we have to prepare and plan for the future of our growing city. This budget is doing exactly what is needed to make Brisbane of tomorrow even better than Brisbane of today. Mr. Chair, Programme 1 of the 2019-20 budget, Transport for Brisbane, is preparing our city for an active and healthy lifestyle through various travel options. As the city evolves, transport is now more than just getting to one point from another. It also involves how you get there and what you will take to get to there. As our city is getting more and more sophisticated, there are wider options and additional benefits needed to be considered for people's day-to-day travel. Mr. Chair, the 2019 budget has continued the proud record of this administration's investment in our active and public transport. As the Lord Mayor mentioned in his budget speech, this budget includes an investment of $793 million to deliver a modern public transport network that includes continuation of popular free services such as City Hopper ferries and City Bus Loop. The Lord Mayor also committed a record of $134.2 million for public transport subsidy. That is $8 million more than last year. A further $32.8 million will also go towards the purchase of 60 new air-conditioned and accessible buses to maintain a modern, low-emission bus fleet. And may I remind the Chamber that these buses are Euro 6 standard buses, which are one level above the current Australian standard for bus emission. This means our bus fleet will be one of the most, actually I think the most environmentally friendly bus fleets anywhere in Australia. Mr. Chair, investing in active and public transport is more than money going to hardware. It is also about the travel behavior, about how we encourage people to travel actively to keep a healthy lifestyle and cleaner environment. Lord Mayor Adrian Schreiner has continued this administration's proud record of investment in creating dedicated bikeways and walking options to deliver an extensive citywide network of safe, convenient, and connected bikeways and pathways. This includes an allocation of $1.6 million to provide safer paths to schools and fixing the missing links within 400 meters of local schools that will complement Council's highly successful active school travel program. I know a number of schools in McGregor Ward will benefit from this funding. McGregor Ward will also benefit from the $25.5 million funding being put forward constructing key bikeway links, which will include dedicated bikeway paths in Wishaw Community Park. It is important that we continue to invest in active travelling infrastructures to encourage our residents to consider their travel behaviour and choose their travel options for a healthier lifestyle. Mr. Chair, talking of travel behaviour, Brisbane Metro will be the real game changer for our city's public transport. Mr. Chair, mass rapid transit system like Brisbane Metro will lay the foundation for Brisbane's future growth in every aspect. Imagine what cities like London, New York, or Tokyo be like without their mass rapid transit system. Brisbane Metro will not only bring our residents home quicker and safer, it will also be able to release 200 buses during the peak hours to support feeder services connecting suburbs to our metro stations. It will provide greater convenience to encourage people to use public transport from home to their destinations and ease the traffic congestion by effectively taking cars off our roads. The opposition is always arguing about have to change from one form of public transport to another, but the reality is people are doing it every day. And the only reason it is not popular in Brisbane is because the state-run Queensland Rail is so unreliable. Thus, 68% of the commuters choose bus over trains. Once Brisbane Metro is up and running, people will be able to enjoy the high-frequency, high-capacity vehicles that will turn up every 3 minutes during peak hours and 5 minutes during the off-peak hours. Based on the assessment undertaken for the business case, Brisbane Metro will deliver a benefit cost ratio of 2.37. That is, for every dollar we put in the total expenditure, Brisbane Metro is expected to return 2.37 of benefits to the local community. A significant portion of these benefits are delivered to public transport users, including faster journey times and more reliable services for commuters across Brisbane. So, Councillor Strong, don't tell us that you always not benefit from Brisbane Metro. Journeys on key links such as between King George Square and Buranda busway stations will be faster by 30% in the morning peak period and 50% in the afternoon peak period, compared to without Brisbane Metro. Variability in travel times will be significantly reduced, creating a more reliable and attractive service. Brisbane Metro will also improve access and public transport capacity to the city's employment, education, knowledge and health hubs, including Royal Brisbane Women's Hospital, University of Queensland, the Mater Precinct, Bogle Road Eco-Science Precinct, South Bank TAFE, Queensland University of Technology Kelvin Grove, and Gardens Point campuses. An additional 40,000 people will be within a 30-minute trip by public transport to the CBD by 2031, and an additional 135,000 people will be within a 30-minute trip by public transport to University of Queensland St Lucia by 2031. Mr. Chair, a reliable, high-frequency, high-capacity Brisbane Metro will significantly change the public transport landscape in Brisbane and laying a solid foundation for Brisbane's future development. I look forward to the commencement of relevant works, and I will continue to support the future extension of the network. I believe it is a vital project, and together with Race of Programme 1, deserve the support of all councillors. I commend Programme 1 to the Chamber.
Further speakers? Councillor Shree.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I rise to speak on Programme 1, and I guess the criticism I have this year is similar to my criticism every year, which is that we're still spending far too much on road infrastructure that's about encouraging cars and not enough on public transport and active transport. So there's a lot of good stuff within this program, but generally speaking, our balance and our priorities are still way out of whack, and we're still supporting and encouraging people to continue travelling by cars and private motor vehicles, rather than making that important and necessary shift towards active transport and public transport. And I want to emphasise through you, Mr. Chair, to the Mayor, you might be subsidising public transport, but you're also actively spending a lot more money on projects that discourage and disincentivise public transport. So it's all well and good to say, oh, look, we've put in this new bikeway, or we've put a bit more money into the public transport subsidy. But if you're simultaneously widening roads that make it much more difficult to get to the bus stop, or you're simultaneously introducing intersection upgrades that slow down and inconvenience pedestrians, you're really undermining your own stated goals and priorities. It's almost as if the two arms of council are working in conflict with each other rather than together. And I think that speaks to the tension between having transport covered by two separate programs within the budget. I see this particularly in terms of intersection upgrades, where often councillors are pushing for those intersection upgrades in order to improve pedestrian safety and convenience and connectivity. But because the intersection upgrades are funded through the infrastructure program, they end up prioritising cars and costing a lot more money than they need to. But I also just want to emphasise that improving the efficiency of bus routes and improving public transport in general doesn't have to be as expensive as some councillors in this place seem to think. The experience from other cities around the world is that where we don't have the money to create the big new busways and big new tunnels and major corridors, major new corridors to carry high frequency public transport, it's actually cheaper, more efficient and more effective to simply convert lanes of existing general traffic into dedicated bus lanes and transit lanes. And that's what we've done in some parts of the city, and it's generally working. And I think we need to have a closer look at where we can introduce new bus lanes rather than simply building or not building, as the case seems to be at the moment, big new busways. We don't have the money to acquire hundreds and hundreds of private homes and clear entire corridors to extend major busways, but we can very easily convert existing road capacity towards public transport. And I think that's what we should be doing, at least in the short term, if we don't have the money for those major busway projects. I, of course, welcome and support the proposals for the 4 new green bridges, and my strong advice to the Mayor and to the administration is that the vast majority of residents of the Gabba ward are very supportive of those proposed bridges. In particular, we're feeling frustrated at how long it has taken to deliver the Kangaroo Point to CBD bridge.
Point of order, Councillor Johnston.
I'm just going to put on the record, Mr Chairman, I've made a formal complaint about you to the CEO of Council and the Queensland Ombudsman in relation to your actions towards me a few minutes ago in this chamber. I'm extremely upset that you have deliberately contravened the meeting's local law, section 41(4), in preventing me as an elected representative from speaking in the Brisbane City Council chamber.
Councillor Shree.
Thanks. I'll just start my timer again.
You have, according to us, 6.5 minutes.
Sweet. So, yeah, as I was saying, I'm very supportive of those new bridges, but we're frustrated at how long it has taken the administration to even start work on delivering that Kangaroo Point to CBD footbridge, which we've been waiting for a long time. I do want to emphasise and highlight, though, that there's still a lot of scepticism around the other idea of the two green bridges to West End being able to carry buses. That's partly due to the concerns about the scale of the infrastructure, but more closely connected to the fact that the Montague Road and Boundary Street corridors are pretty much at capacity. And certainly I, as a councillor, would need a lot of convincing and a lot more information in order to understand how we might be able to carry more buses from the inner west in through South Brisbane. Those corridors are seriously congested. And so if we're talking about either of those bridges, the UQ to West End or the Toowong to West End footbridges, being bus bridges, I'd really like to understand how those buses are going to move along Montague Road and Boundary Street when those corridors are already so congested. You would have noted that I referred to 4 green bridges. That's not a mistake. I think it's been a bit, I won't say misleading, but it's been a clever exercise of propaganda to talk of 5 new green bridges when one of those bridges isn't actually over the Brisbane River. On the map that's been disseminated, it shows the Newstead area, and a lot of residents have assumed that means a green bridge across from sort of the New Farm to Hawthorn or Newstead to Bulimba. But and they're then very disappointed when they realise it's only a bridge over Breakfast Creek. I think that's still a good project. I think it's a good use of money, but I think as a political exercise to rank that project in alongside the other 4 major green bridges is perhaps not being entirely upfront with people. I do want to also welcome and congratulate the administration for the electric bus trial. This is obviously something that I've been advocating for quite a while, and I know others have as well, and I think it's genuinely really good to see that this is finally happening. Again, I wish it had happened sooner. My deeper criticism, though, is that we still haven't had a clear commitment from the administration that the Metro vehicles will not be powered by fossil fuels. And that, to me, it's a no-brainer that we shouldn't be getting in a new fleet, a new kind of vehicle that has to run on diesel or petrol. I really am disappointed that the Mayor still hasn't been able to commit clearly to the fact that those Metro vehicles won't be running off combustion fossil fuel engines. Obviously, also welcome the free off-peak travel for seniors commitment. This was something that the Greens campaigned on in the lead up to the 2016 council election. It's been something that we've been campaigning on for a long time now. The Greens have always been very supportive of discounted public transport fares, and I know other parties and other groups have been advocating for it as well. But I do want to emphasise that there are many other groups that also sorely need access to free public transport services, and I'm particularly thinking here of unemployed residents and young people. And it's interesting that people who are on Centrelink, who are unemployed, they have the lower incomes than most pensioners and seniors. And one would think that they would be a pretty high priority for subsidised public transport as well. And I'd like to see this administration think clearly and carefully explore the possibility of offering free off-peak travel to people who are unemployed, because I hear so many stories of people who tell me that they can't get to the job interview, they can't get to their service provider or to community services because they can't afford the transport. And I think that's a real shame that that group, which would benefit greatly from being able to use public transport, can't afford to do so. And I think that's a real lost opportunity for the city. I also just want to say briefly, it was interesting to watch Councillor Schrinner playing party politics about what fares the state government sets for public transport. But if you were honest about your advocacy, through you, Mr. Chair, you would also be calling on your LNP colleagues in state parliament who are currently opposed to increasing spending on public transport to reduce fares. And I think that would be a very useful way for you to spend your time, is to actually get your LNP colleagues.
Point of order.
Point of order to you, Lord Mayor.
Will Councillor Sri take a question?
Councillor Sri, yes, Lord Mayor.
Is Councillor Sri aware that in the lead up to the last state election, LNP policy was free public transport for seniors in off-peak periods?
Councillor Sri.
I'm aware of that, but that's nothing compared to what needs to happen in this city. And if other parties and other councillors and other state MPs have been calling for reductions in fares across the board, and you yourself are also calling for reductions in fares across the board, then I think the right thing for you to do is to get your party to call for that at the state level as well. I know it's difficult, I know it's expensive, but if you're going to criticise Labor for not supporting reduced fares at the state level, then I think that criticism is equally should be levelled against the LNP state parliament members. Just really briefly, I think the broader problem we see in this budget program is around the philosophy of how we plan transport. And I think we haven't spent enough time talking about whether our priority is simply to get people in and out of the CBD, or whether it's about also making it easier to travel to neighbouring suburbs and giving motorists alternatives for short trips to local shops, schools and community facilities. Other councillors have also touched on this, and there's some recognition within the administration that that's important, but it hasn't yet filtered down through to the officers and the planners who are actually working on projects. And I see this embodied in the active travel projects in my ward, where the design and those specific detailed decisions continually favour access in and out of the city rather than local connectivity. Just finally, I think it's really important that we don't lose sight of the fact that the West End City Cat Terminal still hasn't been delivered. Residents have been waiting almost a decade now for that new City Cat Terminal on the western side of the Kurilpa Peninsula. It's been extremely disappointing to see that other terminals that weren't in the relevant transport plans, that weren't in the relevant neighbourhood plans, have leapfrogged that proposal. And I think it really is time for this administration to look closely at transport plans along that corridor, because you cannot continue to delay this project. Montague Road is already heavily congested. It's bumper to bumper. The buses are full. People are being left behind at bus stops.
Councillor
we need
Sri,
that City Cat Terminal
Sri,
now.
Time's expired. Further speakers? Councillor Cunningham.
Chair, I rise to speak on Program 1, Transport for Brisbane. This side of the chamber has a plan to get people home sooner, and residents of the Kangaroo ward are set to benefit from the fully funded Brisbane Metro. This is a project ranked amongst the nation's highest priority projects by Infrastructure Australia. This year, contracts will be awarded to enable detailed design to commence the inner city infrastructure. Contracts will also be awarded to commence the detailed design and construction of the Metro depot, as well as the pilot Metro vehicle, the first of its kind in Australia. Stage 1 of Brisbane Metro provides a 21-kilometre service connecting 18 stations, at least 2 of which will directly benefit the residents of Kangaroo ward, those being Greenslopes and Buranda stations. As more people move to Brisbane, the Metro will help ensure we can meet the increasing demand for fast, frequent and reliable travel to the inner city by unlocking the potential of the existing busway infrastructure and laying the foundation for future growth of the bus network. Not only are we planning for the future, but we're getting on with the job of delivering for Kangaroo residents. Journeys on key links such as King George Square and Buranda bus stations just at the edge of my ward will be faster by 30% in the morning peak period and 50% in the afternoon peak period compared to without Brisbane Metro. Chair, this is a prime example of how the LNP administration is delivering for residents of Coorparoo Ward and Brisbane. When you compare this to the state Labor colleagues of those opposite, residents of my ward are still waiting for the long-promised, well-overdue Eastern Busway extension. In fact, just the other day, a resident from my ward sent me a pamphlet from 2006. Yes, 2006, 13 years ago, which said there was demand for the busway and it would be delivered. Over a decade on, and yet we are still waiting. Chair, under this LNP administration, the good residents of Coorparoo Ward won't have to wait too much longer for Brisbane Metro. Yet another example of how Team Schrinner is delivering for Coorparoo residents is the Maroon City Glider, providing a frequent and reliable service between Coorparoo and Brisbane's major sports stadiums, food and entertainment precincts. The service originally ran between Ashgrove and Stones Corner, stopping at locations including Caxton Street, Suncorp Stadium, the Cultural Centre, South Bank, QPAC and the Gabba. The extension of the service to Coorparoo Square has been popular with my local residents. In 2018-19, over 1.35 million passengers used the Maroon glider as it delivered over 60,000 bus trips covering more than 1.1 million kilometres. On the matter of the footpath reconstruction on Ipswich Road at Annerley, this well-tread thoroughfare is in need of a facelift which will support local traders and shoppers. I am grateful for the $488,000 that has been allocated after strong representation from the former councillor Ian McKenzie. In fact, the former councillor listed this as one of his highest priorities. I know it will be well received by both the shopkeepers and the pedestrians who use this area. Chair, I'm acutely aware of the popularity and competitiveness of Council's active school travel program. Students, teachers, classes within schools, even school against school are all competing for the golden boot, which is why I'm so pleased that active travel to schools will soon be safer and more accessible right across Brisbane, with $6.5 million over 4 years to build missing footpath links. Recently, I learned of some missing footpath links to Whites Hill College and have door-knocked residents in Camp Hill. As their local councillor, I will be delivering those missing links. I thank the Lord Mayor for this great initiative. And so, together, we will help residents ditch the car, get outside, travel to school on bike, scooter or foot. Chair, this is a budget that will make sure the Brisbane of tomorrow is even better than the Brisbane of today. I commend and thank the Deputy Mayor for her work on this important program which keeps Brisbane moving.
Further speakers, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I rise to enter the debate on Program 1, Transport for Brisbane. Mr Chair, what an absolutely fascinating place this chamber is. Here we are, ready to discuss the Transport for Brisbane program, and all this new unelected Lord Mayor wants to do is play party politics. He talks the big talk, this Lord Mayor, well, in this chamber anyway, but when it comes to actually performing, he just doesn't have what it takes. Talk about pot calling the kettle black. This new unelected Lord Mayor, all he wants to do is criticise, blame the state government at every opportunity. He has a special love, Mr Chair, for Minister Bailey. This Lord Mayor doesn't talk about any other minister quite as much, although Minister Hinchcliffe is probably a close second. I'm not sure what this bizarre obsession is. Maybe he is looking for his next job at George Street when his time is up in March next year. Who knows? If the Labor state government has debt, it's bad debt. If this LNP administration has debt, it's good debt. Again, pot calling the kettle black. This new unelected Lord Mayor, running around like Tinkerbell with his fairy dust and feel-good promises, can't deliver one thing when it comes to transport in this city, Mr Chair. His failures to deliver are blatantly clear. Ferry terminal upgrade at Guyatt Park, fail. Brisbane Metro, fail. Accessible bus stop program, fail. Oh, can I add, in recent days with that program, we find that bus stops are in fact being removed under this program with no consultation with residents nor the local councillor. Next, the new City Cat promised in the last financial year, fail. Cycling projects, over $8.5 million in delayed projects, fail. You can't believe anything this unelected Lord Mayor says. He is all talk, no action, and certainly no delivery on his promises to the city and the people of Brisbane. And the talk continues, Mr Chair. mostly by the unelected Lord Mayor on the nightly news or in paid advertising at ratepayers' expense. All of the self-promotion and navel-gazing by this LNP Lord Mayor and LNP administration is extraordinary. If they weren't so busy shuffling the deck chairs and worrying what they are going to spruik to the TVs that night, they might actually be able to deliver a project on time and on budget. On that note, Mr Chair, let's talk about advertising. Bizarrely, when Labor asked about how much this council is receiving from advertising in the Transport Information Session, we are told they are now commercial in confidence. For those at home, that is the LNP's favourite catchphrase to keep details a secret from the people of Brisbane. Anyone would think it's their personal ATM, Mr Chair, not the hard-working ratepayers of this city's money. So the losses on City Cycle will now be kept a secret. Another fail. Mr Chair, I also want to discuss bus drivers in the context of gender as well as safety concerns. There were some interesting facts that came out of the information session, Mr Chair. Of the 2,335 bus drivers in this city, only 233 are female. That is less than 10%, Mr Chair. I think, as a city, we need to seriously consider why this may be. And one item that I think we can directly attribute this number to is concerns surrounding safety for bus drivers and other transport workers. We need to do more, Mr Chair, to make sure that transport employees feel safe at work. This in turn will help to diversify our transport workforce. One area where we know we can do better, and certainly the bus drivers in this city know we can do better, is commitment to proper barriers to keep drivers safe. The Deputy Mayor comes up with all the excuses under the sun about full driver barriers, cost being the number one. But what price do we place on safety, Mr Chair? Labor has also been raising concerns about the ongoing casualisation of the bus driving workforce for many years by this administration. The LNP says that bus drivers want to be casual, while bus drivers tell us they want certainty surrounding their working conditions. Of course, in relation to my comments regarding increasing female participation, flexibility does play a large part, but there is a balance to be struck. We are moving beyond flexibility and moving towards a trend of casualisation, which is a well-known LNP trait. The numbers are stark, Mr Chair. Last year, there were 2,977 bus drivers. This year, there are just 2,348. Last year, there were 1,663 permanent drivers. This year, just 1,475 permanent drivers. Last year, there were 121 permanent part-time operators. This year, just 81. And most telling, Mr Chair, last year there were 550 casual drivers. This year, 610. Mr Chair, active school travel has been discussed at length today, and rightly so. Although this unelected Lord Mayor wants to claim Labor doesn't support any of its projects, this could not be further from the truth, particularly when it comes to active school travel. Labor councillors in this place have spoken glowingly about this program on many occasions, and we wholeheartedly want to see this program grow, not cut. $785,000 was proposed for active school travel, but we see a cut where only $665,000 has been allocated this year. The Deputy Mayor told us that this was what they spent in actuals last year, so that will do. Sorry, Deputy Mayor, but Labor does not think that will do. We want to see this program grow and expand with more schools and more children participating. This program saw 24,000 children involved last year and a 21% increase in active school travel, yet this LNP administration does not think it deserves more funding. Mr Chair, Labor won't only reinstate this funding, but a Rod Harding and Labor administration will increase funding to $1 million a year. I hope that's enough positivity for this unelected Lord Mayor, because we certainly think it's a positive note to end on, not just fairy dust and empty promises.
Further speakers? Councillor Murphy.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Chair, and it's my absolute privilege to be the first person to address you as that in the Chair, and congratulations on your new appointment. Can I just commence by commending the Lord Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Adams, for this magnificent program, Program 1, Transport for Brisbane. This really, as the Deputy Mayor said in her opening address, is all about a transformation when it comes to transport here in Brisbane, of pivoting towards public transport, of acknowledging, Mr Deputy Chair, that there's not a city in the world that has been able to outbuild traffic congestion by adding additional lanes. And I always look at those fantastic shareables that the cycling community is so fond of tagging me in, where there is the road network in Los Angeles, and they've got, I think, 12 lanes on one side, 12 lanes on the other side, and they haven't yet found a way to tackle traffic congestion by adding additional road space. And certainly that's not what we are about to do here in Brisbane, and that's not what this program supports. This program...
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Sri.
Will Councillor Murphy take a question?
Yes. Councillor Murphy will take a question.
Through you, Mr Chair, Councillor Murphy, I'm heartened to hear you again acknowledging that widening roads isn't an effective response to travel congestion. Are you now willing to acknowledge that perhaps stage 1 of the widening of Lytton Road was not the most effective use of ratepayer funds?
Well, as I've said to you in the past, Councillor Sri, and thank you very much for the question, it's not as simple as not building any new roads. There's a lot of reasons to upgrade roads other than adding road space. And certainly Lytton Road and Wynnum Road, which you mentioned, was one of those where we had significant safety issues, safety risks. People were actually getting involved in accidents. They were being hurt as a result of poor road geometry. So, you know, upgrading roads is not as simple as just always adding space. Sometimes we add intersections. Tilly Road and my ward, Greencamp Road, classic example. We had 50 incidents in the last 10 years where people were hurt as a result of a poor road. Yes, we widened it. We added one additional lane. We added a bike lane as well. But that has resulted in a massive drop in the amount of traffic incidences there. So, you know, whilst I've made the point that you're making is I think, a little bit simplistic. And there's often a lot of great reasons to upgrade roads and to add additional facilities there to improve safety. So you're a guy who likes nuance, Councillor Sri, and I'm trying to be nuanced in this debate, so stick with me here, okay? Now, Mr Deputy Chair, there's a lot of things to be really proud of in Program 1. The key thing, and the thing that I'm most pleased to see, is continued funding for Brisbane Metro. As we know, Brisbane Metro is a transformative public transport project for our city. It will involve the new underground cultural centre station, the Victoria Bridge being converted into a green bridge, our new tunnel and station connecting in with the King George Square station under Adelaide Street, and modifications to 18 existing stations along the alignment to enable station boarding, as well as the new depot facility out in my new ward of Rochdale. So that's fantastic as well. Now, there's been some criticism in this chamber this afternoon about the timeline for the Brisbane Metro. Labor councillors officer have pilloried us for being somehow behind schedule, or not having broken ground yet. The project is stuck in planning hell. Of course, we know that the vast majority of reasons for that sits with apparently the Lord Mayor's best friend, Minister Bailey. But I went and did a little bit of homework. I had a look at what the Labor Party committed to doing at the last council election. And I found this beautiful document here. It's called Rod Harding's Integrated Transport Plan. So I forgive councillors in the chamber for not having a copy, because it wasn't widely distributed or ever needed. But it does have within it quite a detailed timeline called Getting Shovel Ready. So let's not forget, at the last council election, Rod Harding promised to build a light rail system here in Brisbane, and it would have caused traffic chaos, Councillor Cumming, wouldn't it have? Which is apparently a reason not to proceed with the project now. But in that, there's 7 steps, so a 7-step program to build a public transport project. First month in office, established project executive group to oversee planning and delivery. Thinking about, yeah, okay, we did the same thing, okay. 2016 to 2017, strategic assessment and preliminary evaluation of options, benefits and costs, including initial community consultation, engaged with Queensland and federal governments. So provided 2 years for that. And I'm thinking, yeah, Brisbane Metro probably did the same thing. 2017 to 2018, concept design and business case development, including detailed community consultation and private sector engagement. And I'm thinking back to when we did the business case of Brisbane Metro and changed the project so dramatically to move from a light rail system to a rubber-tied MRT system. And I think, yeah, 2017, 2018, I think we did the same thing. 2018, finalisation of the business case and confirmed funding arrangements on preferred option, including cost-benefit analysis and contract delivery options. And I'm thinking, yeah, I think last year we did finalise the business case and we did come up with some delivery options. And then, again, step 5, consideration of business case by Building Queensland and Infrastructure Australia. And I'm thinking, yeah, last year we did the same thing. And then 2019, we get to step 6, 2019, procurement of private sector contractor according to the preferred contract delivery option and with funding commitments. And that's this year. And guess what we're going to do this year? We're going to sign the contracts for the Metro. And then what is step 7? Start design and construction of initial route, 2019 to 2020. Well, what's going to happen later this year and in 2020? Design and construction of the initial route. So, you know, Madam Chairman, Deputy Chair, you know, we will take absolutely no lectures from the Labor Party when it comes to delays on Brisbane Metro, because by their own document, they would have delivered it in exactly the same time frame. But we know if we actually go, a couple of pages back and we have a look at this project, we see that key facts here: length of the initial route 9 kilometres, well, Metro's 21 kilometres. Estimated capital cost 1.2 billion, but it would have blown out. We know that because Labor can't manage money. And then what was the council contribution towards Labor's transport project? 10%, $120 million of the total project. And of course, Metro is 2/3 funded by council and 1/3 funded by the federal government, who has committed their $300 million towards construction. And you know why they committed that funding for construction, Deputy Chair? Because we actually were able to submit a business case for Infrastructure Australia, which was supported by Infrastructure Australia and identified as a high priority project, because Brisbane Metro is a judicious use of ratepayer and taxpayer funds. Compare that to Cross River Rail, which submitted their business case to Infrastructure Australia, and it was knocked back because so much of it was dependent on other projects, on timing variables, and on inflated numbers when it came to the actual benefit Cross River Rail would deliver. So they haven't even included it in their list, and that's been why they've been unable to get federal funding from Infrastructure Australia for it. And while we're on the topic of Cross River Rail, and I think we should talk about it because we talk about it in this chamber so often, it's been going on for 9 years. Isn't it interesting that a project which we commenced after the last council election...
Point of order, Mr Chair. Mr Deputy Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Strunk.
Listen, I don't think Cross River Rail is in this program, so could you bring the councillor back to the program, please?
Councillor Strunk, Cross River Rail has been brought up in this debate this morning. I'll allow it to continue.
Thank you for your protection, Deputy Chair.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Strunk.
Cross River Rail, I don't believe it was brought up earlier this morning. And again, whether it was brought up or not, it's not part of this program.
Please continue, Councillor Murphy.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Deputy Chair, I'll wrap up on Cross River Rail, but I just wanted to add that we have commenced this project from conception to now almost ready to sign contracts in one council term. It's taken the Labor state government a decade talking about Cross River Rail to dig a big hole outside the Gabba. That's all they've achieved. And talk about glossy brochures. What were they spending on advertising Cross River Valley the other day? It was over $12 million, wasn't it, Deputy Chair? Absolutely ridiculous. So we'll be taking no lectures from those opposite. Now, I want to, and I'm running out of time, so I want to just address some of the debate that's come from some of those councillors opposite today. Now, we had Councillor Cumming, who's now claiming Metro is going to cause traffic chaos all over Brisbane because of some work that's happening at the Cultural Centre and underneath Adelaide Street. Well, we've been over what Labor's light rail commitment was at the last election, which would have taken a light rail line through to West End, down to Hamilton, North Shore, and he's trying to tell us the Metro traffic chaos on one underground section of Adelaide Street would have caused chaos. Their project would have caused absolute bedlam. Mr Deputy
Point
Chair,
of order,
so we won't
Mr.
take
Chair.
any lectures from him on that.
Will Councillor Murphy take a question?
Happy to take a question from the Lord Mayor.
Would you say that the failure to deliver Metro would cause even more traffic congestion across the whole of Brisbane?
Councillor Murphy.
Well, I would absolutely agree with that, Deputy Chair, through the Lord Mayor, through the Deputy Chair, because we know that right now, this afternoon, and as it was this morning, buses were queuing on Victoria Bridge. That's what happens every single day in our city. Buses queue on that bridge and they sit there, and Brisbane residents are sitting in those buses wondering what is anybody going to do about it.
I'm sorry, your time has expired. Further debate.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I rise to speak on Program 1, and in particular for me, this is really a program about the forgotten suburbs of Brisbane. And I want to point out or highlight 5 particular examples of how Brisbane suburbs have been forgotten by this Lord Mayor and this administration. And I actually thought he might lift his game. The stand-in Lord Mayor might lift his game in delivering for the suburbs, but no, he continues on with his mentor examples from Campbell Newman and Mr Quirk in terms of it was interesting too to note that he said that in his budget, but he didn't use their names. He didn't use their names. So he's happy to have mentors, but he's not happy to use their names. But let's look at some of what the LNP is doing with its massive majority in this chamber and how they've forgotten about the people of Brisbane. And the first one for me, of course, is about our forgotten footpaths. We know that there are over, and when I got hold of the list, there's over 800 footpaths that are waiting for repair across this city. 800 footpaths. We know that that's a 4-year wait. We know that they're across every suburb of the city. And we know that Council is not keeping up with the maintenance requests for the footpaths. This is 101 Council. This is base Council business, and we're not doing it. This administration are not delivering on the basics for our suburbs. And once again, I go back, I know Councillor Casti gave an example, and I've given an example before in this chamber, of the lady who broke her wrist at Maroon by falling on a footpath that had been reported a year earlier to Council and that had had no repair. This is what Team Quirk this is what Team Quirk stood for. This is what Councillor Schrinner stands for. This is what the LNP stand for. Now, I see one of the councillors over there laughing about the fact that footpaths are in such disarray, and it's such a joke.
Point of order, Deputy Chair.
Point of order, Councillor McCoy.
Claim to be misrepresented.
Claim to be misrepresented.
Didn't mention your name.
Councillor Griffiths, please continue.
Yes. Well, I think the point made before earlier was that there's been 119 suburbs that have no money spent on reconstruction. 119 suburbs have had no money spent on reconstruction of footpaths. That is appalling. I know I was out at Oxley on the weekend, outside Oxley State School, and there were 2 crumbling footpaths there that had been reported before, and they're still crumbling. I know I drive every day along Fairfield Road. It's a 4-lane road, carries a lot of vehicles and heavy vehicles. There's a sunken part of the footpath there that's been reported. And the best this administration can do after a year is put some bitumen in it. It's still sunken. There is no money to repair these footpaths. They're being forgotten, they're being neglected, and it's an example to Brisbane residents of how their ratepayer money is not being used. The second point I'd like to use in terms of Brisbane's forgotten suburbs is the way we're treating safety of our drivers. And after 3 years, we're coming up to the 3rd anniversary of Mamit Sharma's death in October this year, we still have not resolved the issue of bus driver safety. That is appalling, that is pathetic, that is not only an indictment of how we view safety for our drivers, it's an indictment of how we regard safety for our customers as well. Our drivers are greatly respected, and all we see here is a game being played by the Lord Mayor and his LNP administration to do nothing. 3 years on, they've done nothing. Once again, Lord Mayor's having a little chuckle. Then what about more bus services? What about more bus services to our suburb? And I'll give an example. In 2013, the LNP state cut service to Inala, Oxley and Durack and to Richlands. Then the review was passed on to this council, and this council, this LNP council, confirmed the cuts. Some of the poorest parts of the city, some of the parts of the city that people require public transport. This LNP massive majority endorsed those cuts. And now we have a new part of the city, Pollara, where there's thousands of home sites going in and there's no additional services. This is what the LNP stands for. They don't stand for providing services to the suburbs, they're worried about the inner city. And let's look at the bonanza as point number 4. The bonanza that's happening for our city, for our inner city. We talk about the Metro. Let's really look at the Metro. If you actually break down the Metro figures, it's actually a $1 billion tunnel for the inner city. It's a $1 billion tunnel for the inner city. It's not about delivering services. In fact, it's going to cut 125 services. People don't realise that they're going to have to catch 2 buses to work and 2 buses home. It's going to have a massive...
Point of order,
I won't take a
Deputy
question.
Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Murphy.
Deputy Chair, would Councillor Griffiths take a question? No.
Councillor Murphy, Councillor Griffiths has declined taking a question.
This is a massive indictment. It's a massive change for public transport across Brisbane. And it's a massive spend in the inner city. And that gets me to my last point about forgotten suburbs. These 4 new green bridges. $500 million if you want to count the 5th one. $500 million. And we all know that it won't be $500 million. Once again, a Liberal member over there is laughing about this. It's a joke. A $500 million spend on the inner city, but we forget about the suburbs and the issues of congestion faced in our suburbs, the issues of transport for our suburbs. We forget about the residents of Brisbane. There's been no studies released, no cases released. It's just, we will do this and we're doing it on the back of an envelope, and this is a really good thing. And then I understand some politicians don't support, they support green bridges but no buses on them. Wow. Amazing, Mr. Chairman. This budget is not delivering for the residents of Brisbane. This budget is a sham. This budget is rorting the people of Brisbane. It's conning the people of Brisbane because it's actually not about delivering services for them. It's about delivering services for the inner city. It's about looking after the inner city, and the suburbs have been forgotten. And it's not just reflected in this program, it is right across this whole budget. A vote for the LNP will be a vote for more big inner city spending and forgotten suburbs. Mr. Chairman, if residents are foolish enough to accept the con that is this budget, they will miss out in the suburbs of Brisbane. Thank you.
Further debate. Councillor Burke.
Thanks very much, Councillor Toomey, Deputy Chair. I just rise to quickly enter the debate on Program 1, Transport for Brisbane. And it's a great speech that Councillor Griffiths just gave us, because it shows that he and his colleagues have not read the Council budget book and have not read Program 1, because they're peddling this myth that our green bridges that we're building in the city as part of this administration's commitment to be a clean, green and sustainable council and providing transport options for all of the residents of Brisbane are just inner city bridges. Just inner city bridges. I look forward to going out to my residents in the Centenary suburbs and telling them that apparently the Centenary suburbs are now an inner city suburb. I'm sure that Councillor Richards would love to go out to the residents of Belbowrie and Moggill and advise them of their new inner city status. You know, this is a classic thing from the Australian Labor Party. They get sold on this bluff and bluster. They get sold on their messages that have obviously been written by someone else, that they haven't actually read the budget book themselves. They don't comprehend what's in the documents before us or understand what these pieces of infrastructure are going to deliver when it comes to changing how transport works across our city. We know that former Councillor Abrahams is against green bridges now going into West End. She's against them. She's publicly said that. She is the chair of Kurilpa Cruises.
Point of order, Councillor Street.
I'm not sure of the rules, but I just wanted to clarify. I understand we have a practice of not criticising individuals who aren't in the chamber to defend themselves. I'm just curious as to if, like, I haven't seen any public statements from Councillor Abrahams, so I'm just curious, is this allowed? Is this appropriate?
Councillor Sri, as we've heard, the information has been published. It's in the public domain already, so I'll allow the debate to continue.
I would hope that Councillor Sri, as the councillor for West End and the Kurilpa part of Brisbane, would see what Kurilpa Futures have put up on their Facebook page, openly criticising the two new green bridges that are going to be built by this administration down there in the peninsula to help alleviate some of the traffic congestion and traffic problems that Councillor Sri stands up and talks about in this place on a regular basis, saying we need more transport options to help get people out of the West End Peninsula. Former Councillor Abrahams, on the public record, has said that they don't support these options going in. That is a real concern. Councillor Cumming has a real problem. I hope that they weren't going to recycle former Councillor Abrahams for the Gabba Award again at the next election, but who knows? It may be part of her pitch to run again in 2020 and come back to this place. But when it comes to the bridge out at Belbowrie and Wacol, Councillor Cumming said, it doesn't make sense. Well, go out and talk to the residents in Councillor Richards' wards. The Leader of the Opposition should have a citywide perspective, not be parochial to just their patch, as a former Leader of the Opposition was. Go and talk to the residents out there who want emergency access during floods to be able to get in and out of their area and to have supplies put to them. Or the residents of that part of the world who want to ride bicycles in a safe fashion, but the state government refuses to upgrade Moggill Road with cycle facilities, but they want to ride their bikes. What are they meant to do, Councillor Cumming? Silence. Stone cold silence from those opposite, because they know in their heart of hearts that they actually support these bridges. But for the politics of the issue, they're coming out and criticising, just like for the politics of the issue, they're coming out and criticising Brisbane Metro. This part of the program, this part of the budget does deliver for the suburbs, Mr Chair. There is programs there, budget items there that are listed out in the budget book, but in particular in the Centenary suburbs, as part of the Centenary suburbs bus review, which was undertaken by the now Lord Mayor, former Public Transport Chair. Two key things that could be delivered in my ward were a personalised public transport service for Westlake and a personalised public transport service for the Sumner Industrial Estate. And I'm glad to see that both of those items have been funded in this year's budget, so that we can get on and help provide more options and more choice for people to move around their suburbs and to move around the city. The Sumner Park Industrial Estate is a major trip generator. The state government have done nothing to alleviate traffic on the Western Freeway and on the Centenary Motorway or the Sumners Road duplication for decades. They've actually closed access into the Sumner Park Industrial Estate, Mr Chairman, and made local roads more dangerous, with B-doubles now using roads that has school traffic on it. And so by providing an option for people to catch public transport instead of having to walk 500 to 600 metres from the industrial estate up a hill and down a hill in the morning and the evening just to catch a bus, these new PPTs will make it easier for people to catch public transport into this industrial estate. It provides options and choice for some people who are on some of the lowest incomes in our community. If you think about apprentices and tradies who are starting out, who want to have options and choice on how they get to work, they have to drive to get to Sumner Park. But with this new PPT, they'll be able now to catch a train and then get the PPT into the industrial estate to help provide them with those choices and options. The same down in Westlake, Mr Deputy Chair. This is an area of my electorate which has for a long time not been able to have a bus route given the design of some of the streets, but the PPT vehicle means that we can actually provide an option and a choice for those people down in that peninsula of my ward, with now some public transport services that actually provides them with more choice and more options to get around, which is what this administration has always been about. We aren't going to stand here and tell people that you must catch public transport, or you must drive your car, or you must ride your bike, or you must walk. What we've always been committed to is making sure people have choices and they have the infrastructure that supports their choice on how they want to get around this city, whether it's for work, whether it's for relaxation, or whether it's for dropping kids off at school. We're all about choices, Mr Deputy Chair, and making sure that we build the infrastructure that this city needs, not just now, but well into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Further debate? As there is no further debate, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Chair. And it's my pleasure to rise and conclude the debate on Program 1, Transport for Brisbane. There was a lot of very interesting debate, and I thank all councillors for their contribution, some more than others, because we did hear, of course, from the so-called leader of the opposition, people hate whingers, and then we heard from their entire team nothing but whinging for the last 2 hours. I think the so-called leader of the opposition, Councillor Cumming, needs to get out a map and have a look at some of those suburbs out near Bellbarry and see the need, as Councillor Burke explained, about why we need a link out in Bellbarry, why they need emergency services when the next flood comes, not if, when the next flood comes, why they need, after 4 deaths on Mulga Road, a safe route for cyclists to be able to be as active and healthy as everybody else across the city as well. You know what? They may have to come further, but I know what the Lycra Brigade are like out there. I've worked there for 20 years and they love it. They will travel the extra 20 k's they need to get into town. And we are proud to support that in our city, right across the city. The so-called leader of the opposition, and I say so-called because we haven't seen him say anything in the last week, but he does get extra money for his job, but spoke for the shortest, but doesn't really respond to the work. He talked about the 60 rigid equivalent buses, and I answered that very clearly in committee last week, and it actually is on page 16 in the budget book that there will be 10 articulated buses and there will be 45 rigid buses. So there will be 55 buses, which is clearly equivalent to 60 rigid equivalent buses. That is how people measure.
1 moment, please, Deputy Mayor. Councillors will be heard in silence, please. Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, thank you. We also had a drawn-out debate around footpath reconstruction. Let's make it very clear. In every year of this administration, we have put more money on footpaths and footpath reconstruction in any year under a Labor administration. Our footpath reconstruction is undertaken where it is needed most. It has nothing to do with the tinfoil cap suggestions of the councillor for Tennyson about who represents that area. And I'm offended on behalf of the hard-working council officers who sit through those lists, their lists, your lists, our lists, and prioritise across the entire city for where our nearly $10 million next year need to be delivered. Since we've been elected, I hear rubbish from Councillor Cummings. It is not rubbish, and I'll take that interjection. I hope the council officers are listening. They don't believe me. Maybe when you come out to talk to them about their budget, you can explain to them how it works, because this is how it works. Through you, Deputy Chair. We have lifted the good condition of footpaths from 42% to around 77% in good condition since we came into administration. And the fair conditions of footpaths have reduced from 48% to 16.5%. The councillor for Tennyson said she never gets anything. She never gets any footpaths reconstruction, never gets anything fixed. As of the 11th of June this financial year, there were 50 footpaths in the Tennyson ward that were reconstructed. There is only one footpath on the list in Tennyson ward that is older than 2 years, and guess what, Mr Deputy Chair? That is not the Lagonda Street footpath that we got on the amendment. That was considered by the officer through the list that came through in the budget against the citywide priorities, and it was not listed. It's not a consideration. It's not a conspiracy. Sorry, Mr Chair. It's not a conspiracy. It did not make top priority. It is deemed safe and functional. Full stop. Very simple. Then we hear from Councillor Strunk. Nothing in Forest Lake Ward. Nothing in Forest Lake Ward. Well, I open the book and there's Rudyard Street for $195,000 which is being reconstructed, and there's a suburban amenity fund for $562,000. Whoops. Whoops. Oh, we all get that. Well, by the sounds of this, Councillor Strunk, you didn't. Apparently you didn't. He's talking Metro. I'll take the interjection. He's talking Metro. Let's look at how we do service the Forest Lake Ward. When we did a bus review in 2013, we actually expanded the 460 in Forest Lake, expanded the bus services in Forest Lake to make sure the 460 got to the train station, so his residents could definitely get to the train station and transfer.
Councillors will be heard in silence. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And the opportunities we have when 200 buses come off Victoria Bridge, we'll be able to get those buses out in the suburbs, across the suburbs, to a Metro link and get them into town. There's all this crying foul about 2 buses. We've got to get 2 buses. Has anyone been anywhere else in the world on how you transfer between types of transport? And it is faster when you have fast, non-timetable, efficient bus services, which we will be delivering with our extended services and the connection to our Metro system. I also have to talk about Councillor Strunk and the DDA on the City Cats. I wish he'd actually listened totally to the ABC report. I did not dodge it. I'll send you the podcast, Councillor Strunk. I did not dodge that question. We went through the process of this number 22 City Cat very, very carefully through a procurement plan that involved DDA compliance experts and stakeholders from the very beginning. We followed, and it was not after the fact, Councillor Strunk.
Councillor Strunk, please cease interjecting.
The stakeholder interviewed on ABC was not the stakeholder, was not the community group that we used. That does not mean that we did not talk to stakeholders. The City Cat 22 is the most accessible City Cat that we will have on the river. We followed DDA compliance and went above and beyond DDA compliant legislation. And more importantly, and this is something that Councillor Strunk obviously just kind of forgot of what I talked about on ABC Radio, is that we also followed the Disability Standards for Accessible Public Transport 2002, which specifically states lifts are not suitable for double-decker public transport on the river. It is dangerous. I asked Councillor Strunk, if there's somebody in a wheelchair on the second story of a City Cat and something unfortunately happens to that City Cat, how are you getting them down? Do you think the lift's going to get them down fast enough? I don't think so. We put the safety of our residents first, and it's utterly outrageous to suggest that we didn't go through absolutely every detail to make these the most accessible City Cats in the city. We also heard the usual guff from Councillor Griffiths about the class warfare and the suburb warfare. The Metro, yet again, millions of dollars for the inner city. Well, I ask him about Clem 7. Where do you hop into Clem 7? Green slopes. Get you across town, not inner city. What about Legacy Way? We do infrastructure for the whole of the city. And it goes without saying, and the state government actually agrees, the forecast for 2041 is that while the actual growth of the residential growth will be in the outer suburbs, the employment growth will remain in the CBD. So where do you think we need to plan for the future infrastructure? For people in the outer suburbs to make sure that they can get to work quicker and safer, get home from work quicker and safer, and do more of what they want to actually do with their families and their friends. Let's make it very clear. We also heard from those opposite that we've done nothing on the safety of our bus drivers. Again, outrageous. We have to date installed 300 barriers as of last week on our 1,200 buses, and we are rolling out that program. If there was any hold-up on this, it was very disappointing that the union actually went out and told bus drivers not to complete our survey. That is the disappointing outcome of the consultation that we did with our bus drivers across all our depots. But we stand firm that we have got the best solution and the safest solution for our bus drivers, and as I said, 300 barriers to date in our buses. I went through a comprehensive list of what has been done on the Metro program in committee infrastructure, intersection upgrades, early works, procurement. It is all going to be a high-frequency public transport system that will reduce city congestion and make more buses available for the suburbs. Electric bus build, free seniors travel, 6 new city cats, increased public transport subsidy, monohull accessibility, safer paths to school, 5 new green bridges.
Time has expired.
A better Brisbane tomorrow than today.
As that concludes debate, I'll put the motion for the adoption of the Transport for Brisbane program. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division called by the Deputy Mayor and the Lord Mayor. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Please ring the bells. Attendants, please close the bars. Clerks, please read the result.
Mr. Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 25 in favour and 1 against.
The ayes have it. Councillors, please return to your chairs. I now call on Councillor Cooper to present the next program, Infrastructure for Brisbane. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that for the services of Council, the allocations for the operations and the projects for the years 2019-20, 2021, 2021-22, 2022-23, and the rolling projects for the Infrastructure for Brisbane program as set out on pages 27 to 39, and the indicative schedules on pages 154 to 168, so far as they relate to the program, to be adopted.
It has been moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Huang, that for the services of Council the allocations for the operations and projects for the years 2019-20, 2020-2021, 2021-22 and 2022-23, and the rolling projects of the Infrastructure for Brisbane program as set out on pages 27 to 39, and the indicative schedules on pages 154 to 168 so far as they relate to program 2 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. And I had some questions on notice, which I will reply to first. So we had a question from Councillor Strunk about the capital carryover for Program 2. It is $26.88 million. Councillor Johnston asked about what intersections are getting traffic lights. I'll read those quite quickly. Beanley Road and Nursery Road is 1. Commercial Road and Doggett Street is 2. Dandenong Road and Sirocco Street is 3. 4 is Monia Road, Bellwood Street. 5 is Montague Street and Victoria Street. Montague Road, rather. 6 is Woodop Street and at the shopping centre there. 7 is Murphy Road and Ellison Road roundabout, which gets 2 sets of lights. I hear the hear from the local councillor. Player Street is relocating a set of signals, so that is part of that particular project. And Belmead Street and Warrigal Road are also getting traffic lights. There was a question from Councillor Strunk as to consultancies in Program 2. The total of those consultancies is $271,477.13. And Councillor Sri asked a question about Wellington Road, Baines Street congestion busting project. I answered it in the program, but he had left the program when I answered it. Councillor Cassidy was very thoughtfully taking that response for him, but I'll just clarify. It is about implementing a clearway between 4 to 7, Monday to Friday, along the left lane between Baines Street and Shaftesbury Avenue. So those are my questions on notice, dutifully answered. Thank you very much, Mr Chair. I think Program 2 is the best program of all the programs, and I know the other chairs won't like me saying that, but let's be honest, it's the truth. Under Program 2, it is the truth, absolutely. So under Program 2, this council has delivered $7 billion worth of major infrastructure projects under the Trans-Apex plan, the largest combination of infrastructure projects ever delivered in Australia by a council. And I think that is an extraordinary commitment. And I thank all of the councillors, current and those councillors who are no longer with us, who have moved on to different things, in a positive way, of course, for their hard work and efforts in making sure that we continue to build a better Brisbane. When you look at our responsibilities, we are responsible for more than 5,700 kilometres of road, in contrast to the state, who are responsible for just over 320 kilometres of road in Brisbane. And we manage 986 signalised intersections. So there is a lot of work that is done as part of Program 2. This budget, and I really want to commend the Lord Mayor for the work that he has undertaken. I certainly also want to thank those involved with preparing this budget. This is about continuing to deliver infrastructure for our city, building an even better Brisbane over the next decade, over the next 2 decades, and continuing to protect and deliver an even better lifestyle for all Brisbane residents. Through an investment of $818 million this year, Council will be upgrading intersections, will be installing energy-efficient lights in parks and bikeways, will be upgrading bridges and culverts, will be undertaking the first ever restoration of the Story Bridge, we'll be combating congestion and improving pedestrian safety in our suburbs and around schools and hospitals. And in particular, I do want to thank the Lord Mayor for his creation of the allocation for money to implement the Move Safe Brisbane report. So thank you very much. We are getting $1.62 million in 19-20 year, and it is certainly about continuing to deliver the outcomes that we received as a result of the feedback we got. We had more than 6,300 pieces of feedback received in December. We've produced our report. We've got 9 outcomes that recommend 31 programs and projects to help deliver safety for pedestrians all across our beautiful city. This in particular includes things such as reviewing speed reductions around local shopping centres, pedestrian hold arrow protection at traffic signals, slip lanes, and reviewing zebra crossings on multi-lane roads. All of this work is underway. We're also working with 3 major hospitals and are about to engage with the other hospitals, so approximately 50 other hospitals in the city, to work on doing move safe plans for their location to focus on improving pedestrian safety. We're also going to be rolling out a pedestrian awareness campaign for linguistically diverse communities, and the first will be rolling out for Sunnybank, and I know the local councillors will be very involved in that. We will be continuing to invest, so we have got $21 million over this 4-year term to deliver at least 50 congestion busting projects for arterial roads, as well as upgrading CCTV and Bluetooth infrastructure, which helps maintain the flow of our traffic each and every day. These projects focus on delivering low-cost, high-impact solutions with the aim to get more out of the existing road network, to sweat the asset, so to speak. These projects will investigate extending turn lanes, the management of road space allocation and alteration to signs and lines. The LANI projects, this is one that again is delivering low-cost, high-impact minor infrastructure projects to enhance the amenity and safety of all road users, and as at the end of this month we will have delivered 20 LANI projects this financial year. In the 19-20 budget we'll be investing nearly $3.5 million into 27 LANI projects. Traffic calming, we've got $1.662 million. We have always had a program where we are investing in traffic calming to deliver localised safety improvements like speed platforms, roundabouts, traffic islands and curb build-outs to ensure safer streets, while also minimising rat running and moderating vehicle speeds in local streets. Typically, we would undertake design in 1 year and construct the particular initiative if we, of course, get support from the local community, and we typically put forward between 10 to 12 different schemes this year. Last financial year we had 4 safety improvements constructed, and we had 11 designed and community consultation undertaken. So in this 19-20 budget we'll be investing in 9 traffic calming improvements throughout our suburbs. The SAM program, I think one of the most spectacular successes that we've been able to achieve. It's an award-winning initiative, and I do thank the current Lord Mayor when he was in charge of Program 2 back in the day. He was the one that piloted this particular program. Now we've got our speed awareness monitors becoming a normal course of business for councillors. In fact, I think nearly every councillor has at least 5 SAMs in operation, so that's really testament to how successful this particular program has been since its launch in November 2013. We've seen motorists who were travelling above the speed limit showing an average speed reduction of approximately 8.4 kilometres per hour across all sites. And we've had more than 254 million vehicles that have passed these monitors since the implementation. So in the last financial year, we purchased 33 new monitors, we installed 88 new footings and rotated 149 existing monitors across 631 locations. So a program that's for a small investment but does a tremendous job out there in our local communities. We've also been undertaking our traffic management plans, working with schools, using that template that Council developed to provide a consistent approach to parking and traffic management, while also allowing for flexibility for schools to address specific traffic and safety challenges. To date, we've had 162 schools which have submitted a completed TMP to Council, and will continue to work with the remaining schools to develop their TMPs and improve safety in and around schools. So we are more than halfway through the schools in our city, and I really thank the councillors that have been such strong advocates for this program and their engagement with their local school communities. It has been a great example of how we can work in partnership with schools to deliver improved infrastructure. We're also going to be undertaking the Northside Transport Action Plan, so I thank the federal government for their continued investment in our great city. I am a Northsider, Mr Chair, as are you, and I absolutely notice each and every day, as would all of the Northside councillors, we are one on the North Side, to say that we are seeing people. I know you're on the south side too, Councillor Burke, but we think about you also, but North Side first. last and always. So the Northside residents are having to sit in traffic. They are sitting in traffic bumper to bumper each and every day. And we are particularly seeing not only people sitting in vehicles sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, but we are seeing buses sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic. So we want to see an improvement for the residents of the North Side, and in particular, we think there's an opportunity for us to look at a range of options. All of those options would be ones that we would be doing consultation with the community, and all of those particular options certainly I think are ones that the state government should also be considering. When you look at the impact particularly on roads like Old Northern Road, Sandgate Road and Gympie Arterial Road, these are state controlled corridors and the state needs to step up and come up with some new proposals to tackle these sorts of issues. So we've got $10 million over 2 years to undertake a Northside Transport Action Plan to combat congestion and to deliver a preliminary business case for a preferred project or projects. If you look at, for example, one particular network in the North Side, you've got the North-West Trouts Road corridor, which has been identified since 1965. So this has been something that's been in place, saying it is a 9-kilometre corridor of significance. It's been marked as a transport corridor for a very long time, but there has been no action undertaken with respect to this particular corridor. We've got the proposal for the Northern Transitway. This is, in Council's view, a band-aid solution. $53 million to improve traffic by basically taking out parking along the arterial road. It is basically an attempt to try and do something instead of doing the right thing, which is delivering the Northern Busway. And I absolutely concur with the comments made by Councillor Cunningham. It is time that the state government delivered that busway infrastructure, because it will make a very significant impact on traffic congestion for the whole of our city. So we are continuing to look for the projects that we will continue to undertake over the years ahead to tackle traffic congestion and provide better facilities for public transport. We've also got our energy efficient light program, so we are installing improved lighting across the whole of the city. So the LED lighting that we're putting in place will reduce our carbon footprint by approximately 13%, with LED lights using up to 60% less energy than current technology. In 1890, we installed 3,800 lights in parks and on bikeways, and this year we'll be replacing approximately 4,000 lights, again, in existing parks and bikeways with LED. We also completed in March of this year an LED upgrade in the RNA and Breakfast Creek tunnels with 1,350 LED lights installed, and it certainly is a lot more attractive to pass through those particular locations. We've got our LED road signs program delivering the 200 flashing LED road signs over the 4-year term to improve safety on our streets and tackle congestion. We've got a total of $3.2 million that's been allocated for the project over the 4 years, and wherever possible, these signs are solar powered. We have also got, in 1920, the last of the 200 LED slowdown signs being installed at new locations, the purchase and installation of 26 new diamond-shaped LED warning signs to enhance existing LED slowdown sign locations in place. The Smart Pole Initiative, we are a smart connected city, and we're all about making sure our city continues to be a great place to live, work and relax. We are installing 20 smart poles. These exciting new devices will be able to provide real-time data to council, including foot and bicycle traffic, noise, climate and air quality information, to assist in improving our operation and efficiency and provide better facilities for residents. We have got a lot of work underway with bridges and culverts. We own and maintain 3,210 bridges and culverts, and they're valued at over $1 billion to replace. This budget in particular will continue to deliver investment both in new and rehabilitation of bridges and culverts. In terms of new bridges, we'll be undertaking undertaking the construction of a replacement bridge for Gresham Street at Ashgrove, which is the only access road to St John's Wood. And I know the local councillor is going to be very keen to see this project get underway. In this 18-19 financial year, we're also completing construction of the Suttling Street Bridge, Chapel Hill. We're completing the construction of the Beams Road culvert. We're completing design and construction of Magura Street Bridge. We're completing design and commencing construction of the Wynnum North Road culvert, as well as the upgrade of the Southside Pony Club Bridge. Story Bridge, and I'm glad that the local councillor is excited about that one. Story Bridge, of course, is a key link in our city's network, carrying approximately 100,000 vehicles per day. It has been obviously operating since 1940. Undertaking this restoration is vital to preserve this icon of our city, and we'll be reviewing and assessing the tenders received, and it is estimated that 33,600 litres of paint will be required to restore the bridge, and it will take a 5-year period to undertake this. And of course, Kingsford Smith Drive. It is one of our city's busiest road corridors, carrying on average 70,000 vehicles each day, with 10% of those being heavy vehicles. It links the CBD to the airport, the Port of Brisbane, and growth areas like the state government's North Shore, Hamilton and Trade Coast. Trade Coast, of course, is home to more than 60,000 employees and more than 1,500 businesses. By 2030, North Shore will be home to around 15,000 people, an employment hub for up to about 10,000 people, and with Trade Coast there'll be an extra 30,000 extra vehicle trips per day travelling on Kingsford Smith Drive.
Councillor Cooper, your time's expired.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair.
Further speakers? Councillor Griffiths.
Yes, thanks, Mr Chairperson, and rise to speak on infrastructure program. Very interesting to hear a number of initiatives here, and for my own ward I was very pleased, and I have raised this in the chamber, to see that the truck diversion is going ahead for Watson Road. So that was a very bit of good news for my local ward, and particularly for the residents of Acacia Ridge who are impacted by that particular issue. Unfortunately, but this particular program was quite disappointing in what it did deliver for the city, and in particular I believe the south side of the city has missed out significantly. Once again, we saw a number of projects delivered for the north side of the city, but we saw that the south side was missing out again in terms of the infrastructure delivery that this LNP administration was delivering. And overwhelmingly, I think it was said as a sort of joke by Councillor Cooper that the north side always comes first, it's her priority, and I can understand that as a north side
Mr.
councillor.
Chair?
Yes, Councillor Cooper.
Claim to be misrepresented.
Noted.
I can understand that as a north side councillor, but it shouldn't be reflected in the budget and the program delivery that we have here today. And I know that there are a number of councillors on this side of the chamber, and I know that there are councillors over on that side of the chamber that are missing out significantly with what is being delivered in their electorates. And in particular, Runcorn electorate is significantly missing out, as is McGregor electorate. And I have the figures on those in terms of the amount of rates taken, but the amount of capital expenditure that goes into those wards. So it isn't just councillors on this side of the chamber who are feeling the neglect of the administration, it is councillors on that side of the chamber. And it is often councillors who are in the outer suburbs that are feeling that sort of neglect. A constant neglect of infrastructure for the suburbs. And Mr Chairman, we always hear about Kingsford Smith Drive being the important program of this administration. Well, Kingsford Smith Drive has already blown out $47 million. $47 million of ratepayers' money has been wasted on that exorbitant gold-plated project. And unfortunately, the residents of the rest of Brisbane are paying not only with their rates, but with their lack of infrastructure and the lack of delivery by this administration in their suburbs. And as well as a $47 million blowout on Kingsford Smith Drive, we know that it's going to take 1 year extra to build, and that it's saving less than 1 minute's time for the drivers who will use it. That is an incredible statistic. So what we're seeing with this administration and this council is that they would rather spend $100 million per kilometre of road on building infrastructure for the inner city and ignore the suburbs. Think about that. When I say it to residents, they can't believe it. This council, this Lord Mayor, supports spending $100 million per kilometre of road for the inner city, but he can't fix up the basic services in the suburbs. And they can't believe it. So that stands as testimony to what this administration stands for. Once again, as I spoke about in my first speech, was that this council was about the inner city. And once again, this council is about delivering for the inner city, but forget the suburbs. And it was interesting to hear Councillor Cooper, and it seems to be, I'm picking up a theme here. I think we're all picking up a theme here. It's an evil state government. They're the problem. It's not us, it's them. It's not us, it's them. Oh, and in fact, it's Minister Bailey. He's the problem. Oh, it's evil. The evil state government out there. It's amazing. And in fact, their tune is changing. Their tune is changing. They're now saying no city has ever kept up with congestion. That's the new line too. That means we've given up. Yep. We've given up and we're going to blame those guys in state government until our guys get in there, and then, well, I don't know who we'll blame. It is incredible. It is incredible that this administration that has such a massive majority is blaming someone else. They're blaming someone else for their debt. They're blaming someone else for their roads being clogged. And it was interesting to hear Councillor Cooper talk about, she drives in from the northern suburbs and she notices congestion. Well, that's good. This is the chairperson of congestion, noticing congestion. It was an interesting statement, but it wasn't caused by me. It wasn't caused by me or our administration. It was their fault. Well, Councillor Cooper, can I draw attention to two roads? The state government actually spending money, the state and federal government are actually spending money out Rockley Way to do the Ipswich motorway. Yes. And that connects on to Oxley Road and it connects on to Ipswich Road, which are our corridor roads, which we've done nothing with in the 15 years you've been in power. Nothing. And they're congested and they're having problems in terms of people waiting on them and safety issues, and nothing has happened. In fact, Oxley Road, I think, is probably one of the worst roads, wouldn't you say, Councillor Johnston? One of the worst roads in Brisbane. Haven't touched it forever. And there's even been, I believe, the Minister has even offered the Lord Mayor to do something about the railway congestion point there. Has even offered to provide money. But nothing has happened. Nothing has happened.
Councillors will be heard in silence. Councillors will be heard in silence, please.
Incredible. Incredible. So, yes, this part of the budget, once again, is another con for the residents of Brisbane. It's about doing nothing. And also it's about doing nothing with our open level crossings as well. There is no money for the Coopers Plains open level crossing in this budget. None. This is going to be very interesting for a particular councillor in this ward if her electorate suddenly takes in Coopers Plains, because that particular councillor has argued against the crossing. So it'll be very interesting for that LNP councillor to be going to the residents of Coopers Plains saying, hey, I'm against you getting a crossing in the area. But that will come up at some stage. Look, we believe that this is a dud budget. This is a budget that doesn't deliver for the residents of Brisbane. It doesn't deliver for the suburbs of Brisbane. It fails our suburbs. And yes, it fails LNP suburbs. It fails Runcorn. It fails McGregor. It fails our suburbs in terms of what's delivered. So how the LNP can hold their head up high and say, hey, Look at the billions we are spending in the inner city and look at the forgotten suburbs of Brisbane. Mr. Chairman, this is an appalling budget. It's a budget that should be condemned for what it doesn't deliver for the residents of Brisbane, and it is a con and a rort on the residents of Brisbane for how pathetic it is in what it does. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper, you had a misrepresentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I know that most people in the chamber understand that I, of course, would advocate for Northside residents as I represent Northside residents, but I also, of course, have an obligation to represent all residents as I, of course, would.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Point of order, Councillor Johnston.
Mr. Chairman, you've made it very clear in this place that misrepresentation is about somebody's speech. Councillor Cooper was engaging in debate rather than addressing anything that Councillor Griffiths had said about her. And I would ask you to rule on whether that was an appropriate point of order.
Well, it wasn't a point of order, but I think I'll take your advice under consideration. But I would take this opportunity to remind all councillors that misrepresentation should be as close to addressing the issues in the speech presented earlier, not an opportunity to relitigate your argument. Further speeches. Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It gives me great pleasure to address Program 2, Infrastructure for Brisbane. And like the program before it, Transport for Brisbane, this program is all about building the infrastructure our city needs as it grows and our city continues to grow. And we are making the record investments that need to be made to accommodate that growth, to make sure Brisbane remains livable, to make sure that people can get around our city, whether it's by public transport or by active transport or by other means. Now, there are some councillors in this chamber who have an ideological position against road upgrades. We don't share that position. We do not share that ideological position. Our position has always been a practical one. And that practical position is that there are many reasons to invest in our infrastructure network, whether it's public transport, active transport or roads. And as Councillor Murphy pointed out before, the reasons to upgrade roads are not single-fold. There are many different reasons why you need to and why you should upgrade roads. Safety is obviously a big one that comes to mind, and every day there are accidents that occur on this road network across the city that cause a lot of grief and a lot of cost and a lot of injury to our community, and that is something that we need to continue addressing and something we are continuing to address. There should not be a philosophical or ideological stance against upgrading roads. There are legitimate good reasons to upgrade roads, and we certainly won't be in the position that some councillors are, which creates this binary situation where you either invest in roads or you invest in public transport. It's one or the other, you can't do both. That is not the case. As our city grows and as people move around the city, you can think of the different types of, I guess, needs for our road network, like freight is a big one, like the large number of couriers that are out there every day, the large number of small business people that need to make deliveries, the tradespeople, the tradesmen and women that are out there. These are people that cannot catch public transport, even if you have the best public transport system in the world. And so we need to consider those people as well, because they are part of our community, and in fact their livelihood is linked to a good quality and safe road network. Because if their roads are congested, it makes it harder for them to do business, and there is a flow-on cost for all of the community associated with that. More cost of congestion is a cost that we all wear, and it is a cost that we pay for in many different ways, including in insurance premiums and including in the cost of goods and services, which are added to by congestion. So we will continue to invest across all the different modes of travel, whether it's public transport, and we are doing a record investment going forward in public and active transport, as the city has never seen before, And as I mentioned earlier, there's been a massive shift in that direction, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop upgrading our road network. We will continue to do what needs to be done to make sure that we cater for all of Brisbane, whether you catch public transport, whether you drive, whether you walk, whether you cycle, or whether you ride an e-scooter. And so this program helps to facilitate that investment in our city. And it's interesting to hear Labor councillors, and particularly Councillor Griffiths, he dusts off the same speech every year, the same discredited lines every year. And the line about the neglected suburbs, he's been making that claim probably for over a decade. And the only common link there is that the suburbs that are neglected are the ones that he's neglecting, the ones that him and his Labor councillors have been neglecting because we invest in the suburbs and Councillor Griffiths and his colleagues don't want to see the suburbs go ahead. They don't want to see those suburbs improve, and the only neglect is through them as a local councillor, through them as local councillors. But when it comes to investing right across the city, we are doing it in record amounts in this budget. There is a infrastructure funding of $932 million, almost $1 billion in this budget. And that is an incredible investment in the infrastructure right across the city, in many different types of infrastructure. But if you consider where the money is going and the type of projects we're funding, a wide range of diverse projects that will help meet transport and infrastructure needs right across the city. And I'll go through a few of those. One of the first ones I just wanted to point out is the investment we're making in facilitating the cruise ship terminal for Brisbane, an asset that will bring incredible tourism opportunities to our city, and the tourism opportunities will create jobs for Brisbane residents. There are ships that can carry 5,000 people each that will be coming to Brisbane now as a result of this new terminal when it opens later next year. And I was out there the other day with the Premier and several state government ministers to turn the sod on the terminal. And it was interesting because I think there were 3 or 4 state ministers there and myself representing the city. Guess how much state government money went into the cruise ship terminal? Not a single cent. Not a single cent. Yet Council is actually investing, the only level of government investing to accommodate this infrastructure and make it happen. So we should be very proud of that, and that is infrastructure which will generate a great benefit to our city, I believe. Open level crossings. In this budget, we have made it clear we are putting in our fair share going forward into open level crossings. The funding is there going forward. The federal government has committed that they are putting in money towards open level crossings, and the only group that is missing in action is once again the state government. And it is a sad but common theme. The Minister for More Congestion has not put a single cent towards constructing new open level crossing replacements. Not a single cent. And in fact, when the federal government wanted to give the minister $400,000 for a feasibility study, he wanted to palm that off to council. The flick pass. Oh no, this is, council can do that. We'll give you the $400,000. No. The Minister for More Congestion needs to step up and get cracking on these open level crossing projects, commit state funds so that we can all work together to deliver better outcomes for our community. The community is sick and tired of the state government's lack of action on this and buck passing, every opportunity to pass the buck. Guess what? The emperor has no clothes. And the only level of government that is not committing real funds to open level crossing replacements is the state government. And we'd like to see that change. We've got the money on the table. It's there in the budget. It is funded going forward, and we are committed to delivering those projects that help reduce congestion and improve safety. One of the things that I'm particularly excited about in this budget is the long-term transport planning project, which is funded by a $10 million contribution from the federal government, the Morrison federal government, to help us plan for the transport and traffic needs of the northwestern suburbs of Brisbane. And you didn't hear Councillor Griffiths talking about the northwestern suburbs of Brisbane being neglected, did you? No. But they have been neglected by the state government, who have had plans for almost 50 years, or maybe in excess of 50 years, to do something about infrastructure on the north side of Brisbane, particularly the northwestern suburbs, yet they have done nada, naught, zip. There has been absolutely nothing done other than to preserve a corridor. And so, as we have done consistently in this administration, and going back, starting with Campbell Newman and going through to Graham Quirk, we have championed projects that have then been successfully taken on and supported by other levels of government. That is our clear record, and we can all think of the projects that we have done that with. These are projects that should be delivered by other levels of government, but we have championed and we have initiated the planning and gone forward to support these projects. And they are now in the ground. They are now benefiting hundreds of thousands of residents each and every day. It's because of the foresight that Council had. And so this is the next stage of that long-term agenda, to develop a plan for the north side, a transport action plan for the north side that will see solutions to the traffic problems on the north side and the northwestern suburbs of Brisbane. And obviously...
Mayor, your time's expired.
Thank you.
Councillor Richards.
Mr Chair, I move that Council now adjourn for lunch for a period of 1 hour, which commences only when all councillors have vacated the chamber and the doors have been locked.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Marx, that this council now adjourn for a period of 1 hour for the purposes of lunch, commencing when all councillors have vacated the chamber and the doors have been locked. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.